Ay, señorita, ¿por qué me dejas? Bueno, mira, señora, ay, señorita, nadie sabía lo que iba a pasar. Solamente fuiste y me dejaste solito en la eternidad. Señora, ay, señorita, yo sé que ahora estás lejos de mí y siempre estoy pensando lo que estás haciendo. Y si te sientes más feliz, y si te sientes más feliz, oye, y espero yo que no te sientas sola y que tu vida está llena de felicidad. Porque deseo
hell yeah, getting rejected. Good shit.
Como yo atrapado en la oscuridad, solito en la eternidad, solito en la eternidad, oye. Trompeta.
I love this, by the way. I love this. I love this. It's like, I had an MRI. I don't know what they were doing. I just let them skin. Just let them skin. Aquila! We'll get to that Wordle or whatever. Sporkle? Súbelo, súbelo! Ay, señora.
Ay, porque me dejaste, solamente fuiste. Que no te sientas sola y que tu vida está llena de felicidad, porque deseo que nadie tenga que
Cyber Monday, guys.
Mismo como yo atrapado en la oscuridad y solito en la eternidad. Ay, señora, vuélvete acá, vuélvete. Ay, señora, ya se fue.
Ba-da-ba-ba-bow. Ba-da-bum-bum-bow. Ba-da-da-da-ba-bow. How you guys doing? Patriots game tonight, fellas. Big game. What up, YouTube chat? Hey, we're working on the solution, all right? I'm told we'll have a progress report this week. So just be chilling. Oh, we'll talk about that for a little bit, Dunk Pacino. These guys gotta eat some vegetables before they they get their entree. I know, it's hella week. Yo! What do I do? I'm cutting you off, guys. Sorry, it's gonna be abrupt. Alright, that's it. Hey, that wasn't so bad. I picked a good place to stop it. How you folks doing? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello, how are you? So I'm told things happened. Something happened. Even though I was assured nothing would ever happen. How was your Thanksgiving? Mine was great. How was yours? How was everyone's Thanksgiving weekend? How was your Black Friday? Did you get in any fights? What up, Kafka? Hope you had a good Thanksgiving as well. Did you guys do that like Wednesday night? Any like college-aged / recent grad aged people who did that Wednesday night, who went to that bar where those people were and saw certain individuals? Raise your hand. Now's the time to come clean, folks. YouTube, I'm told, will have an update on the YouTube chat this week. That's what I'm told. I, as ever, am not in control of when the gods decide that these things should happen. Zero Fights with MAGA Parent, says Timothy Douglas. Kevinator says, bought stuff for my girlfriend's Christmas calendar. Like the 25 Days of Christmas with the candy. What up, Ghetto White Boy? Oh, wait. Ghetto White Booty. I misread that. You read what you want to read, right, folks? How you guys doing? Non-existent because I'm in Europe, but I did have pollo asado. Very cool. Condemns pull off a miracle tomorrow in Tennessee, asks Bandit Blitz 76. I believe Polymarket. This is becoming Orwellian. The betting market situation. Have you guys seen the betting markets on the Ukraine territory control map? That is like some fucked up shit. That is too dark. That is way too dark. Thank you so much for the follow on YouTube. Thank you for the sub on YouTube. Appreciate that. Folks, it's the morning. Here's what I would love for you to do. At some point today, if you have it in you, why don't you give my video with counterpoints a like to me? That's your call of action for the day. Barring that, thank you guys so much for joining us. Some things to talk about real quick. The first is the state of bullshittery on the right. Well, why don't I go through the whole agenda, which is what I was doing, but I wasn't planning on doing it. All right. Agenda item. Number one, I'm going to talk for like 5 minutes about the debate situation, which I feel is happening right now, in that a lot of right-wing people I feel like are not willing to debate. Then I'm going to spend all of 5 minutes on this Alina Habba stuff. And I heard that the Law of Self-Defense YouTube channel, which I have also run into, in that he has also been a coward when I have reached out to him and done things with him, that he had a little bit of an encounter with fellow Live and Learn co-host Soy Pill, Destiny, WhickTV, and Good Logic, who I'm also scheduling a conversation with about things related to the National Guard situation, legal stuff. That's all in my wheelhouse. And so I thought that it would be a good idea for fun, but also to see some of the arguments, to watch a little bit of that soy out on WhickTV. So that is what I think. Yeah, did you post that in the Peace Corps discuss? I just feel like it's listen, it relates to the first topic that I've been thinking about a while, which I'll talk about now for a little bit. But get settled, grab your coffee. If you're working at a data center, thank you. This one goes out to all the data center people, all the data entry people. This one goes out to you guys. This morning is about y'all. It's about the people in cubicles. It's about the people in the data centers. So let's start first with what I'm seeing in terms of the right's willingness to debate. They're just not willing to debate right now. They know everything is fucked from this administration. So and I haven't watched the this debate that we're going to look at with WhickTV. I did hear that he walked off. But my intuition is that a lot of these right-wingers have just no willingness to debate the merits of the administration. And if they do, it's only on this very weak, what about you double standard stuff. Very rarely on its own terms, on its own merits. Certainly not to ethically justify stuff that the administration is doing. And this goes, I think, for a lot of the right-wing grifty type lawyer type people. I will make an exception, which is I think that some of the goobers, the people who go to that laid back law, they are willing to debate. This is the Good Logic types, Viva Frey, who I'm scheduling a discussion with this week. Good Logic, who says is open to it. And so these are people that interpersonally I like more. And if for any reason, even though I find their views reprehensible and wrong, I just find them funny sometimes. And it doesn't mean I'm going to go nicer with them in the actual discussions, but maybe it's just a sensitive, not sensitive. What do I mean to say? It's a bias. I'm not sensitive. I'm biased in favor of them because I find them more affable and more willing, honestly, to engage. The goobers. You know what I'm talking about, right? But that doesn't mean that I think that they're necessarily gun-ho about it and that they're good faith about it. So we'll take a look at that. But it's my impression not just of the lawyer types either. I'm seeing a lot more insular groupthink type situations. A lot of less responded to debate offers. It's all over, in my opinion. That's why I was, frankly, a little bit delighted in some word war debate news. Wait, should I show this? Word war debate is considering having me on to debate Rob Knorr on corruption, Trump versus Biden. Now I have to frame it as this kind of double standard whataboutism thing, because otherwise I don't think Rob has any chance of biting on that debate topic. So unfortunately, I'm desperate enough to get conservatives to debate against, but they're looking into it. That is the official Word War Debate channel. We've kind of like ragged on Word War Debate a little bit in the past streams, mostly because of their name, Word War Debate. Me thinking it was World War Debate all this time. Turns out it's Word War Debate. Why not just Word War? And then also, when it says where the best go to bang, that's kind of an in-joke. People are like, what are you talking about? That's like what him and Sam Tripoli, Andrew Wilson and Sam Tripoli were saying in the video. And so when I'm like, it'll be a bang, I guess that doesn't come through if you don't know what the fuck this is. You know what? Why don't we just...
The Enlightened Network is proud to present Word War Debate, the premier debate league. I'm Ben Swan, and I'm here to introduce the new gold standard of debates. Every statement, every argument, every counterpoint is tested under the lights in real time.
Yeah, boss.
Let's send it over now to Andrew Wilson and Sam Tripoli inside the ACX1 studios in Atlantic City. Guys?
What we decided to do was get a great team of people together.
I'm sorry, kid.
Get one hell of a venue and put together some of the funnest and most riveting debates that you've ever seen. And I'm going to moderate these debates. And this is going to be fantastic.
And if you're lucky, maybe at the end, Andrew might debate.
This guy,
I don't know. Why would we have
glazing Michael Jordan?
Why not throw him in the game?
We're going to have the best on, and we're going to put it in the best venue.
There's debates all over the place, but there's no brand of excellence where you go, this is where the best go to bang.
And
it's where the best go to bang, you see?
to that effect, that's exactly what we're putting together in this venue. Now we're going to bring that standard of having all that moderation excellence, where I can moderate this debate fairly. A lot of people try their hand at debate moderation, and it's actually far more difficult than people think to do it right. Coming up with the gold standard for the format was critical, and we worked on it. My entire team worked on it, along with Tripoli's entire team, and we came up with just
the stains.
Just a banger of a venue.
It's a banger.
We're going to take pro sports with pro debate.
Look at those. Look at those things. They're huge.
And create a beautiful hybrid. What you're going to get are the best of the best going at it, the smartest, the fastest, the most ruthless. Put up or shut up, okay?
This has never happened before.
People being able to eat, people being able to
That's
drink.
never happened before.
People being able to actually have a good time.
Hell yeah.
They actually want to meet the people who represent their
worldviews.
And they want to break bread with them. They want to actually talk to them. They want to kind of have input on these ideas, because most of these debaters are representing whole worldviews. Whole worldviews on behalf of people who can't. The mechanic can't do it. The mechanic can't go on CNN and tell these pundits to go f themselves.
Yeah.
That ends up being the job of you, the representation of the worldview.
And we're like, what's the best place to do it at? There's
No
only one
way.
place. ACX1 Studios in Atlantic City is where the champions will be named.
If you want to cover it, you want to stream it, you want to restream it, you want to mix it up, you're more than welcome to do it.
Legally.
Until we get to the main event.
Then you
When
can.
we're talking about the VIP side.
Hell yeah. Walk into
we
the
wanted to
pool.
make sure that we had a third floor lounge.
Right on the water.
the ocean.
Yeah.
Look at these lovebirds.
Right on the ocean.
This venue is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Where we go to
and what we
bang.
can do, and what we are doing, is we're going to make sure that if you get a VIP
Fuck, look at that wedding picture. Oh.
ticket, one, it's affordable. Two, that when you come out and you come up to the VIP section, you're right in front of the ocean, nice fireplace roaring, huge area for us to relax and have a good time post-debate.
You gotta get your golden ticket,
We want
folks.
you to be able to meet the representation.
That's never
of your
happened.
worldview.
You've never been able to meet
It's
them.
never really been done before.
It's never been done.
And it's a whole different type of venue that we're really looking forward to sharing with all of you.
It's real simple. All you're going to have to do is go to wordwardebate.com, grab your tickets now. This will sell out.
Wordwardebate.com. Make sure you go there.
And it all goes down January 10th, Atlantic City at ACX1 Studios.
So hopefully I'll be able to go to this for free. Hopefully. That's an update there. But I am hopeful. I'm definitely hopeful that we will have an opportunity to debate more conservatives, because it does feel a little bit like, I don't know, I'm struggling to find certain people. Maybe it means I have to just bite the bullet and go to TikTok. But it's always like, my old tactics used to work. Hey, you want to debate it? Da-da-da-da. But people they're seeing what's around and they're not liking it. And so I just find a lot of the debates being organized now that conservatives are participating in are like shitty self-critique debates about should we become Nazis or not? Have you seen these debates where they're like, it's all about should we be Nazis? I'm tongue in cheek, but you know what I'm talking about. Candace Owens, I don't know if it's a zig or a zag. I don't mean to have any, although she's saying some sus stuff. She has a massive following on YouTube and on Twitter. And every other tweet, this woman sounds insane. And so they're like stuck debating whether France has ordered the assassination of Candace Owens to cover up for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and also that Macron is married to his father, who's a woman. That's the nature of what they're wrestling with and grappling with. I think sometimes to avoid the tough questions, which are being forced upon the American people through this criminal administration that continues to do corrupt shit. We're going to unilaterally kill people who are alleged to be drug dealers and drug traffickers in the middle of the water. Oops, they might have been fishermen. But also will let out one of the most notorious and corrupt drug traffickers in all of history, this former Honduras president, as part of my bid to endorse a candidate in the current election and bolster them in the election. Like, the level of corruption confounds the simple. The average man cannot conceive of such corruption. It is beyond their ability to conceive of such things. And so, as difficult as it is for us to track them all, imagine how difficult it is to run cover for all of these different things. Here's the secret, though. You want to know the secret? Don't try. Don't try. Follow a few accounts that pretend to, and then sort of just retweet them when they give this kind of middling bullshit response or meek little whataboutism. And then elsewhere on debate, word war debate online, I don't know what to call it, the debate sphere, the debate meta, you have these enlightened centrists like Ryan Mullally. I heard he's preparing over the weekend. I'm really studying to see how I can defend the administration on like the UCMJ and whether or not these strikes are good, either as policy or legally, whether or not anything wrong happened. That's his biggest concern, is how do I defend Trump? I don't like that this is reality that we're living in. I just tell you how it is. I tell you what it is. So that frustrates me sometimes. I think that people are dodging a little bit. And so I'm starting to push the issue a little more. I'm starting to be a little bit more of a debate me bro type person. Because I do want to challenge whole worldviews. That's never been done before, that people have said these kinds of things that I'm saying. Don't forget about Ross Ulbricht. Yeah, I mean, the administration loves it if you're corrupt and sell drugs. You just gotta be aligned with the administration. And then, I don't care if you're like selling drugs or hitting cops, doing actual convicted sedition. Actually, what else? Massive amounts of crypto fraud. It is, I can't even conceive, if this debate between me and Rob were to happen, when we're doing like a comparative analysis about the levels of corruption, because I will concede that there were certain corrupt acts taken in the Biden administration, right? Because it's my genuine opinion. But we're talking about like the pardoning of Hunter Biden and when he decided to like close the border illegally for his political advantage. That, like, they would take that as a point of pride. And for that, I mean, that's nothing compared to the laundry list, the rogues gallery that we've developed. So I think the odds of Rob Rob accepting this if it's offered. And I to be clear, the way it's pitched, the way Rob pitched it was to be for like bigger people than us. We're both like, what, 200 to 300 viewer Andes on YouTube and 20 something K subs on YouTube. Like, I don't know. I'm 25. And I'm still working. I'm going to make that video for you guys, the Q&A. That's in the works. I'm like, who am I from? I know the number. All right. We know the number. But the way they pitched it was like a little bit bigger. So I don't know if it'll be, but then how they're kind of like, who would you want to see debate? Signals to me that maybe they're looking for ideas or up and comers, or maybe their talent pool isn't as they pitched it, which is like get Bill Clinton and Ron DeSantis to talk about the best way to have sex. That's kind of how they pitched it. But, you know, they have Steven Crowder signed on, so that's a big name. That's way bigger than me and Rob. So, and Andrew does have that connection to Piers Morgan, other people, Sam Tripoli, big people, I guess Joe Rogan by extension. Who knows? Who knows? So if that debate doesn't happen, I'm not going to say it's just because Rob doesn't want to do it. It's possible they're going to get bigger names, so I don't want to put that in your guys' head. But I will just say, I notice a broader trend of debate dodging, of people being like, whatever. Like, we want to talk about random shit that doesn't, you know, culture war stuff still, like it's 2022. Or COVID. 6-year anniversary, right? COVID? Are you winning yet? Do you feel old? Raise your hand if you feel personally attacked by what I just said. 6-year anniversary. COVID. But, okay. 1 year closer to the sweet release of your meaningless lives. Let's talk a little bit before we get to the meat and potatoes about Alina Habba. And I'm not going to go through the whole lawsuit. I'll show it to you. I'll just show you. This is your vegetables, all right? You just have to see words on a white PDF for 20 seconds, and then I'll talk about it for 5 minutes. That's the equivalent of, I know you guys don't like, well, I won't say you guys. There's a select group that likes it when we go really in the weeds on the law stuff, and we will definitely do that on this channel. Not as much today, but you gotta get through your veggies if you're part of the larger audience, whatever, just to look at a PDF with words on it and hear me talk about it for a few minutes. So first off, this is Alina Habba, and there's been this like growing frustration. I say growing, but like it's always been a frustration that Trump has had with personnel. And it's this Heisenberg uncertainty principle where he wants to be able to have completely loyal people underneath him. He picks the people who he says are perfect, but they're actually responsible for all the horrible stuff that happens according to his sycophants. And of course, none of the blame goes on to Trump. And so we live in this parallel universe where personnel decisions warp reality and are this kind of impenetrable gestalt of nonsense and buffoonery. And they are whatever they need to be legally, pragmatically, for Trump or the Trump sycophant or the administration spokesperson at the time. So that is compounded by the constitutional system we have for selecting people who are part of the executive branch, where we have this tradition, which is backed up by mandatory language in the Constitution, to nominate principal officers of the United States through advice and consent of the Senate. And that is the typical process by which like the big honchos have to be appointed. The appointment process, right? Now, that doesn't mean that every Tom, Dick, and Harry, is that the phrase? Every Tom, Dick, and Harry has to be gone through this process. If you're just an underling, If you're a janitor, that's like not the head janitor or something of all of the United States government. If you're just like a assistant U.S. attorney, if you're a special agent, that doesn't mean that every single member of the administration, the sort of underlings, has to be gone through the Senate. That would be absurd, right? We're talking about a bureaucracy of more than 1 million people who work for the government. And obviously that includes a lot of like military personnel who don't need to go through the Senate, everyone, right? That would be insane. But we do have this understanding that principal officers, right, not the inferior officers, the Constitution kind of makes a distinction between inferior officers and the other officers, who we have this, we call them principal officers. It's kind of weird to call them superior officers. Some people call them that, but the non-inferior officers or the principal officers. And U.S. attorneys, as Alina Habba purported to be, or a specific type of U.S. attorney, are an example of these principal officers. They have always required advice and consent of the Senate. They're like the main prosecutor of a federal district, right? You can think the country by statute has been split up into different districts that have been further subsumed under certain circuits. And just as there are judges of particular districts, there's a head U.S. attorney, right? There's a U.S. attorney of a particular district. You can think of that as like almost the equivalent in the local or city or state context of like a district attorney, right? You have the state AG, and then below them, although it's not in the state context, it might be separate in terms of who they answer to. Very often there are independent elections for these different offices in a particular state, right? So it's not exactly the same. Here we have a direct accounting responsibility where the AG is sitting atop the U.S. attorneys and actually does exercise some amount of supervisory control over the U.S. attorneys. The Attorney General can fire U.S. attorneys, but that doesn't mean that they're not still big people, right? The U.S. attorneys are big people. They are in charge of enforcement of federal law in specific districts. And they coordinate with Main Justice in Washington, D.C., and perhaps, field offices of the FBI, other local state prosecutors, and they're like a known entity. In specific districts are famous for their prosecutors, especially like the SDNY, right? That's known as the Sovereign District of New York because of its previous independence and independent streak of those prosecutors. Very important, right? It subsumes Manhattan, a lot of financial crime, a lot of hooks for organized crime, that kind of stuff. So U.S. Attorney's Office, very, very important. And principal officers that need to go through advice and consent. But Trump has always had trouble because he wants to appoint lunatics. Especially now in the second term, he wants to appoint lunatics. And so he has trouble like putting through people who are lunatics in the Senate. It causes a lot of grumble, and delays. And frankly, sometimes, weirdly enough, it's less so on those like big premier appointments or nominations. Members of his own party are like, we don't really want Alina Habba to be running this shit. They kind of exercise some soft power to delay and push a little bit. And so as a result, Trump often has to act using actings or interims. And this will create legal issues for himself where there's a question of authority. Because, of course, imagine that you're a defendant that's charged by someone, an acting or an interim. Maybe the first thing you think about is, well, why don't I make a motion or get my lawyers to make a motion that questions whether this person's even allowed to bring this. In the Comey case, this was done of Lindsay Halligan, the, I don't know what you want to call it, the creature, had no experience in criminal prosecution whatsoever, that they appointed to fuck up that investigation and that, not really an investigation, that political indictment. And it was so bad that they actually dismissed the case in that situation. So this is just another example of perhaps one of our saving graces is what these people lack in moral character or in ethical constraints and in the rule of law they make up for in incompetence. So I believe this is just make sure, Third Circuit Court of Appeals. This is your 20 seconds of looking at this. Decided that Alina Habba is not actually the U.S. attorney for New Jersey, or for whatever district in New Jersey. It was a unanimous opinion. See if we can find a juicy line. Boom. Habba is not the acting U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey by virtue of her appointment as first assistant U.S. attorney, because only the first assistant in place at the time the vacancy arises automatically assumes the functions and duties of the office under the Federal Vacancy Reform Act or whatever. Additionally, because Habba was nominated for the vacant U.S. attorney position, she cannot take the role of U.S. attorney. So she is not the thing. She is not working for the government. And that is just me letting you know that happened, but giving you a little bit of a white pill in that there are some courts that are willing, I think, to stand up for the rule of law. But there's a more significant part of why I'm bringing this up. And it has to do with this unitary executive theory. And it kind of relates to some of the talk we've heard about Trump and these strikes and all that, right? Where underlying all of this is a premise that the president needs to have an untrammeled ability, an unduly chilled ability to manage the executive branch however he wants all the time. In other circles, this has been known as the unitary executive theory. Okay? And this theory is a lie. By which I mean, it's not supported by the Constitution. And these cases show that, undermine it. And this is how. Follow me on Twitter. Right? Why is Habba being disqualified as U.S. attorney? She's been disqualified because she's not comporting with the statutes governing federal vacancies and acting U.S. attorneys and interim U.S. attorneys. There's like various different statutes for these. And that one, right, might clue you in to presuppose that there is some congressional regulation that can occur regarding the executive branch and staffing decisions, which is binding, which has been like kind of in question. We'll see what the Supreme Court makes of it. But it would really do a disservice to the Constitution if they were to rule that Congress couldn't do this. Why? Because there's like explicit constitutional grounding of this stuff. And it gets me to my tweet, which is, look at Section 2 of the Constitution. It says, the president shall have the power, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur. That's the treaty-making power. And he, that is the president, shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States whose appointment are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. But the Congress may by law vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper in the president alone, in the courts of law, or in the heads of department. So notice what stands out there, right? You have the president alone, the heads of department. Those are two members of the executive branch. But then you have the courts of law. So Congress can by law vest the appointment of inferior officers in the courts of law. And this would, be the Article 3 courts, the courts of law. The Constitution, in other words, clearly allows, as Trump is finding out in these cases, that's what my reference is, for Congress to empower courts of law to appoint inferior officers. How can the president have total control of the executive branch if courts could appoint most of the bureaucracy? There's no getting around it. The Constitution does not support the vision of the presidency as a hermetically sealed branch in which the entirety of the executive power is vested in the president, if that executive power is thought to include staffing decisions, which all these people think it does, right? All these people say you can't stop a president from hiring whoever they want to hire as Fed chair. You can't stop the president from firing everyone, right? That's the removal authority. And in case you're not following, most employees of the federal government are inferior officers. So imagine a setup which would be totally constitutional of the courts of law appointing practically everyone save for the principal officers. Big mistake. I've misspelled principal officers here. Huge red flag. Doesn't seem very unitary to me. And if the Constitution allows for that, which it does, then it cannot, by necessity, embrace the theory of unitary executive that we're being sold to by conservatives and SCOTUS if we're being true to the literal text of the Constitution. That is, which is a big if. So all this is for me to say, like, in the Constitution, there's an explicit reference to Congress allowing for judges, courts, and stuff to appoint if they wanted to, right? They haven't done this, and it would probably suck if they did, because it's like, I mean, well, I don't know, but it seems inconvenient. Judges have a lot of other stuff they're doing, so I'm not sure that it would be the best idea all the time, but they are empowered to do so. In the specific case of the interim U.S. attorneys, they've given that power, Congress has. Initially, right, the executive can appoint the interim for like a set period of day. I think it's like 120 days. But after that, the judges are actually empowered to appoint the interim, the courts of law. But how could that be, right? If this is a hermetically sealed, the executive power is totally within the hands of the president. He has complete control, right? And everyone understands that complete control to encompass everything regarding staffing, right? Maybe procedurally, he has to go through some hoops if he wants to appoint the principals. Those are there. But in essence, he exercises it all. How can that vision of the constitutional understanding of executive power be true if the Constitution explicitly allows, if Congress wanted to, right? Congress, if it wanted to, could do this, could appoint all of the inferior officers through courts of law, empowering the judicial branch to take on executive appointments without consulting the president at all. Some fucking unitary executive. All it would take is an act of Congress saying everything that was the president's role as far as inferior officers is now the Supreme Court of the United States. So, I don't know. It just bugs me because it does feel as though every time we have these discussions, and I don't know what they're going to touch on, but I assume a lot of it's going to be like, the president has the complete and total and unreviewable, and how dare you, and this and that. And it feels like every time we have discussions, I have to challenge even the starting premise here, which is that this is a lie. It's a lie that we need and do live in a system where the president operates in this fashion, completely without any care to other coordinate branches, and even to branches intruding, right? That's the presupposition, on their own prerogatives, namely hiring people to do jobs in the executive branch itself. It's a sort of inconvenient truth of the Constitution that it says this, but it does say this, and you can't undo it. And it's the same thing, by the way, of why Trump versus United States is so wrongly decided for that point, and the other point, which is Robert's whole conceit, his whole idea that Congress cannot touch the official conduct of the president at all. That's what he says. He says Congress cannot intrude on this power, but they can with impeachment, because no one doubts the ability of Congress to impeach a president for his official duties. That's part of what impeachment was there for. So this entire vision makes no sense. And what I want to convince you of is that whatever the people in DC and the Supreme Court are doing, it's not reasoned decision-making based on a good faith interpretation of the Constitution. It's not that. That right now what we're seeing is more and more, maybe not in all cases where there's no political stake at issue, but in the issues of political importance, political decisions that aren't being moored to a consistent philosophy regarding the Constitution. And that disorganized, rudderless framework that the Supreme Court has provided to you has infected the minds of our commentary class and has got them to accept truisms that are preposterous, that our president can act like a fucking king. Now, in the domains in which he is acting like a king, it's a complete mess. Where Trump has complete untethered power, it's a mess. Tariffs, pardons, right? Anything where he's like touching it without any check, it's disastrous. Totally disastrous. And so why do we think that we want such a system where the president's control is even greater? I would want a constitutional amendment. I'm glad to see Ro Khanna supports this. I think we should get rid of the pardon power. If you gave me a choice between no pardon power and the current one, I'd say no pardon power. If you want to amend it to include, I don't know, passes Congress and then signed by the president, like any other legislation or something, I don't know what your proposals are, but right now I'm in the opinion of fuck pardons. I do not like pardons at all. This maybe worked in this vision of America where we'd have George Washington-like leaders that are dedicated to, I don't know, the office or something, but it's not working right now. And it makes me savor and value more and more the actual structure of the Constitution, not what these bozos are talking about, where there are checks and balances and separations of powers. That's great. Why don't we go back to that? Anyway, that's my rant. Any questions or thoughts before we get to what you gonna do with that dessert? So I don't really know. I know that Branca walked off and then it has to do with like National Guard or strikes or something. Would you agree to a congressional veto, but you need a supermajority veto? I don't want the president to have the power. And I don't want it to be like some kind of affirmative sign off or some kind of like they need to affirmatively act to prevent it. I want you need to have consult more people before the president and pardons if they even have that power. If they even end up there. It is too much power. And we can see all of like the rules lawyering games and areas for corruption they've created for themselves. Because perhaps the framers didn't think that we'd have so corrupt a political party as the Republican Party that they're able to stomach basically any level of corruption. We've never seen anything like this. And now, like, people are like, do you want to know how bad it is? People were genuinely shocked when the Republican leaders of the various relevant congressional committees on armed services said, we're going to investigate this alleged war crime. People were genuinely shocked. I also want to stop referring to it as a war crime. I think it's just murder. The war crime is like a backdoor argument. That's like an argument in the in backup in case it were like a legitimate armed conflict or something. I view this as just murder. So I'm certainly, as an initial matter, going to say this is just fucking murderous conduct by our military. So, I mean, I'm just going to start right there. But the broader point is people are genuinely like, wow, I cannot believe that the Republicans are agreeing, at least in a statement, in a bipartisan statement, to say we will exercise oversight over this clearly problematic issue. That is like a holy fuck moment. I saw that, I'm like, damn. Now, what will come of it? Fucking probably nothing. It probably takes two days for everyone to get their talking points or whatever. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say nothing will come of it. Certainly not while Trump's in office. And all of this obviously flows upwards to Trump. And so it's kind of useless. We're kind of buying this like Pam Bondi's responsible for everything copium that the MAGA people love so much whenever we do this, right? Whenever we play this game of like, oh, it's Hexeth and Trump. It's Trump as principle. We need to like really think about it. Do you have a minute to talk about pardons? Sure. In a sec. I'll bring you on in a sec. But fuck, what was I going to say? But yeah, that's just like how far the Republican Party has fallen, that we're taking it as like a noteworthy thing that the Republican-led committees would issue a statement saying, we will exercise oversight. That's like, wow, holy shit. It's like there might be a committee investigating a Republican right now. All right, let's see what little homie wants to say. Yo, what up, little homie?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, bro. How are you?
Good. It's been a little while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, a lot going on. But you and I talked about pardons a long time ago, and I actually really, over time, you'll be happy to hear, I've really come to appreciate your position on it. I think probably like most people, I'd never really thought that deeply about pardons, and obviously the last three administrations have really made it come to the fore a lot more. And I wanted to run something by you, because I think you have a bit of a better handle on it than I do, as far as an argument for why I don't like pardons. Right, one of the reasons. So my understanding is that the pardon is a check from the executive on judicial power. Right, that's kind of the 50,000 foot view. That's why we would want a pardon for the executive. Is that a good kind of general statement to make?
I don't know that I agree. I think it's broader than that, than a specific check on the judicial branch. I think it because it relates, the interest of justice in both in the statutes that Congress enacts, the injustice potentially of having those be enforced down to the letter, and that is also a check on the executive in bringing the case in the first place potentially, and a check on a previous executive, a check on the citizenry that condemned him, or the system which caused them to plead guilty. And so I would construe it as a broader kind of a check on the justice system in general, and the framers thinking that it was most wise to put that in the hands of one person, maybe because it would be more politically responsive, etc. Hello?
Because that makes sense. Like the way they're explaining it. I like how you explained it there. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Basically, what I'm saying is like,
Can you?
you're breaking up a bit, bud. I think there's a delay. Are you in an elevator, maybe?
Sorry.
How about now?
Here.
Test.
Give me one quick second.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Right now, I can,
Am I
but
less robotic?
maybe a little bit.
Okay.
Test. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna count to 3, and when I say 3, you say yippee. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Yippee.
All right. That was a bit of a lag, but you can respond to what I said.
Okay. I liked the way that you kind of framed it as kind of a check on the overall judicial system, or justice system.
Justice, yeah.
I'm having a hard time though with like the idea of an executive needing that, considering the amount of control they have over the DOJ, and then if there's a problem with the previous case, can they appeal it? And if that appeal isn't going to go through, well, they can appoint judges. And then if the law or the system itself is at issue, then we have a legislature to change those things. And if none of those processes work to fix this perceived injustice, to me it feels like a pardon is just the most brute force way to do it. And I'm not sure I necessarily see that overarching threat of the justice system such that the pardon is necessary. Does it make sense what I'm saying there?
I think I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think that just it should lead you to the conclusion that it isn't expected or wanted or good for the president to interfere in the individual decisions of federal law enforcement at the level of prosecution. I think it more lends credence to the notion that it might be an abuse of power to have the president, or the framers might have thought it would be, the president being in charge of down to the actual on the grounds prosecutions in that sense. But I don't see them as mutually exclusive, because the framers could conceptualize what's in the best interest of justice vis-a-vis prosecution and deterrence or whatever, as different powers, the power to prosecute and the power to pardon, and that the incentives for pardoning might be different than the incentives for prosecuting, though perhaps some of the the conditions overlap in when you should drop a prosecution and when you should pardon. But I don't see a necessary contradiction between those two. But what is the point? Is the point that you don't think that's what was intended, or you don't think it's necessary for the president to have such power?
Well, I think that the where I'm coming in is more of, I think it just creates a really bad set of scenario or situations of motivations for the president to ever use a pardon.
Oh yeah.
Where if a president is in power, if he does not want someone to be prosecuted, he can just directly go to his DOJ, improper or not, and say, drop that case. He can do that. And that is easier and potentially less controversial because he can do it in secret than doing a pardon. And there's less like implications of things and less of a public statement. You can just kill an investigation before it even reaches trial. So then a pardon now is most likely going to be something that the president didn't have control over, which would be a previous administration's conviction of people or investigation of people. And so then to me, it's saying, well, it's most likely then that the pardon is probably going to be against people from other political parties or other political leanings, and it inherently leads itself to be this kind of political tool, because maybe you're using it to fix mistakes, though there's no way to know if that's the reason why or if it's a political or personal motivation. But instead, it's you saying, okay, I'm going to go in and I can go in and kill all the investigations I don't like and the cases I don't like, but those previous ones that I don't like, now I also have the power to undo it. And so it feels like to me, when I'm looking at the pardon power, it just seems like it's really hard for it to ever be necessary to use during your administration on an ongoing problem, right? I think it's Joe Biden having to use it on his own son, I think is incredibly rare, because I think like a person that's willing to use a pardon to do that, I feel like would be also willing to just kill that case outright. Joe Biden didn't, for various reasons, kill it outright, and then for his reasons decided to pardon him. But I think in much more likely scenarios, people just go, no, just don't investigate this person. I don't even want to have to extend the pardon power. And so then now we're just left with the pardon power used to undo the actions of people that you don't like. I think we can all agree that like mistakes are bad, or injustices that are like obvious to anybody are bad, and maybe those should be undone. But then there's still this gigantic space for you to come in and say, I disliked the person before me. I'm just going to undo all the convictions that I didn't like in there, or the ones that are beneficial to me. And so there's this just gigantic bad motivation for a president to abuse the pardon power with absolutely no check. And I think I lean more towards your side of we shouldn't have it, or there needs to be a incredibly complex and oversighted process that doesn't allow for these things. Because it seems like something that is so powerful and left bare that we really can't trust a single person. Despite I understand the arguments from the founders, but it just seems like since that time we have now seen it be abused by Trump. And I understand your arguments for Biden. And while I don't maybe 100% agree with them, I think that Biden's actions with them do align with this kind of idea of like, yeah, I mean, like whether or not I agree with that pardon, it still seems like this power is so strong and so easy to abuse. This is just another example of it.
Yeah, a lot of response. I mean, like the main thing is I think we agree that the pardon power sucks as currently it is.
Yeah.
So on the main point of substance, I guess we agree. Where I disagree, I think, is like your conception of the potential for misuse is far too narrow. Like it's not just to use it politically previously. It's also to encourage further lawmaking in the future, because your pardons can extend as to future prosecutions. That's what we're all worried about with Trump, isn't just his corruption for past convictions. It's that he's going to just pardon his cronies for things that they're doing now, including, by the way, shit. Like I'm sure he'll hit Tom Homan with something, and whatever that is, for like bribery, for like very clear attempted bribery, or at least conspiracy to do bribery, or something like that. The conception, the ability for abuse is incredibly wide, and it's more wide than just the mere discretion over prosecutions generally, right? Like nothing would prevent a future. So in that sense, it's more permanent. It's a stronger ability. It's unilateral. The norm against it is not as strong, because the pardon power has never, in my view, at least in recent history, been used responsibly. And so people just kind of at this point are inured to it, although it's never been used this irresponsibly in Trump's second term, even going by Trump's first term standards. This is what he's doing now, and what he's like probably going to do is going to be absolutely insane. So for a lot of reasons, I think the pardon power is horrible. And you captured some of it for sure. Where I'm like most agreement is like, I don't know why it inures to Biden's benefit that he pardoned Hunter as opposed to killing the prosecution. The mere fact that you would see one as totally unacceptable and the other as like, you don't buy my arguments yet that this was a corrupt pardon.
I think that killing it, I think is a lot easier to make the argument. With the pardon for his son, I think that our last discussion is that I agreed that at least part of some of the pardoning that he did for his son was corrupt.
Okay, yeah.
But I think that we both agreed that on the I think it was on the tax one. I thought we agreed that the tax one made sense because it was like he'd paid it back. I'm sorry, it's been too long, but I'm not here to debate that. I'm happy to concede the ground.
I think he lied to the American people. I think it's now when I say this, the only reason I bring up the Hunter Biden pardon and the pardon of his other family members, all that stuff, is because oftentimes, or one of the main reasons is because a lot of people will get mad when I do it. But like, I'm just recognizing a problem. It's a problem that is by far and without question the biggest with the Republicans and with Trump himself specifically. But it's a broader structural problem. It's not just hey, and that you've said this too, so I think we're agreeing. Like, this is not just a Trump issue, and it should be gone entirely. That's part of what I'm saying, because like there are some things which are like pretty much a Trump issue. Like, I think the president should have a great deal of power over the executive branch. He should have a great deal of power over the armed forces. Now, I don't think it gives him the authority to do what he's doing now, and so we can do whatever. But a lot of what Trump is doing is a Trump problem, not a presidency problem. It's who we chose to be president. But the pardon power, I think, is one of those where I stress it. It really, they're horrible pardons on both sides because I want to get rid of it.
I definitely agree. And you brought up the pre-pardoning, right? Or the pardoning of past actions that haven't yet been investigated or charged. If the pardon was only for, if you could only pardon actual convictions, right? I think that there's still issues that we've discussed here, but at the very least, do you think that is like a step in the right direction? Or do you think that how do you feel about if someone said that?
No. Okay. It's not far enough. They got to get rid of it. And
I think I agree with you. I'm just wondering because to me, it's the one thing I would say about where it's only the convictions is that this makes it very clearly that you're only going to be able to do things that like have been proven in court to have happened, to have convicted them of a crime and things like that. Whereas like that way, if someone's leaving office, right, they can't say, "Well, I'm going to."
That would make it better, I guess.
Done here.
But
I agree with you.
The only reason it's better is because it significantly curtails it. And it's less of it. So I mean, just because if I'm going to put it in but the problem I think is just like, it's too strong. The presidency already has so much power. It's by far the most powerful branch. And so I just don't think it needs it. Give it to Congress if you need to have it. I don't even know if you need to have it. If you're going to have it, give it to Congress with like a check by the courts or something. I don't know. If you really, really need it. Have Congress pass a law, and frankly, who's been better on at least with disclosure on the Epstein stuff? I think some of the Congress people say go too far on what has been found by the Epstein files, but like at a bare minimum, if you had a vote for it for like every person that you're like letting free, it would really, really, you really have to have a good showing that there's been an injustice. Now maybe it would make justice slower or something. Or I don't know, maybe you put in the presidency the power to delay an execution by X amount of days if it's really like a time crunch or something. But I really think that if I had the choice right now, no pardon or pardon, no pardon, no one gets it.
Yeah, I think that I just don't. Yeah, I think it's something. I'm not usually a person that says replace something with nothing. I really don't like that political stance on most things, but when it comes to the pardon, I think I have to agree with you. I think I'd be open, and I think you would be too, if someone actually came up with an actual viable replacement and it actually served a purpose that we could agree was like useful, like sure. But as it stands, I can't see a way that it survives.
And like look at even the MAGA people, like they'll defend the Jan 6 pardons because those are they have their narrative on that, but even they're not out here defending some of this part. Like maybe Dinesh's, maybe anyone who's like a culture warrior for the right or something. But some of these can't be explained by anything but corruption. And
the Binance or the Bitcoin guy, one, I saw like open MAGA people being like, what the fuck is this? Like before they got their marching orders, of course, then they kind of fell in line. But like they have that knee-jerk reaction for sure. I mean, so then whenever you talked a little bit about Haba earlier, and I do want to follow up one thing on that was, what do you think the judiciary's appetite will be for kind of revisiting any previous cases she's filed based off of this decision?
I don't think that they're going to be inclined to dismiss a ton of cases based on this. First of all, I don't know how many cases that she's specifically overseen, but
that's been my experience. I just didn't know if like you had heard anything or seen anything on it, just because I haven't read enough about it.
I think it usually is when there's like the Comey situation. She was the only fucking prosecutor there, and she was highly involved in everything that's going on.
Right.
So there's that situation. There's also when Eileen Cannon dismissed the case at Mar-a-Lago based on this bullshit on the special counsel stuff. Remember, Jack Smith was being appointed not as like a interim U.S. anything, as a special counsel. And she disqualified the whole thing, even though there was tons of line attorneys. In general, I think it's kind of weird that, except in the most horrible of circumstances, that you dismiss an entire case based on like one prosecutor being whatever, but they're not actually in office, right? So there is these de facto officer doctrines. It's ironically though, one of the methods that I think I don't think it has a high degree of success in the courts unless we stack the Supreme Court, which I think we ought to add people to the Supreme Court. On my idea for Trump is, if there were any way to try to get justice for this administration without getting a constitutional amendment, I think it would require us implementing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, using having that process find a way to judge,
like formalize it.
Trump specifically as having engaged in an insurrection and therefore ineligible. Therefore, he would have been ineligible at the time he issued all these pardons. And so we're talking about invalidating pardons. My guess is the Supreme Court, as currently situated, would take one look at that and be like, you can't invalidate the pardons, de facto officer doctrine, something like that. But the reason I bring it up is because it's kind of a similar issue. Do you invalidate? I do believe that Trump, I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, Trump is the Oval Office occupant. I do think that he's unconstitutionally occupying the Oval Office and that he's acting under color of law. And if I were on the Supreme Court, I would say all his actions are ultra virus. They are of no effect. He is not constitutionally in office. That is my view. But they've created doctrines for this kind of stuff. If it applies to U.S. Attorney, I'm guessing it applies to a lot of the conduct from the president. But I still think that Democrats should test it.
I went on a WIC panel, I think last week or the week before, and discussed a similar kind of theory where it's like, we need to, like, honestly, if we can get a Congress that's large, like if we get enough control of the Congress, we should challenge all these things. And if the Supreme Court tries to knock it down, we just impeach all the ones that disagree, put on people that agree, and just push through it.
I don't agree with that. No, you have to impeach for. So here's the problem, right? My guardrails are always going to be what I think the Constitution allows for, and so I'm not in favor of charging people with insurrection. For example, I heard Stephen mention, where I'm about to look at one of his discussions, who haven't committed insurrection and who haven't engaged in insurrection. And mere support for someone who's done an insurrection after the insurrection is over is not engagement in insurrection. So I wouldn't be supportive of that. I wouldn't support politicizing the DOJ to just go after enemies like Trump is doing. And I wouldn't support impeaching judges who haven't committed any high crime or misdemeanor.
But like, I here, like, the nice thing is I can actually agree with you, because every judge that would disagree with that has, and I could easily show, like, especially if that the kind of utopian liberal controlled Congress that I'm talking about, of, well, we've got evidence of corruption of like at least 3 of the 6 Supreme Court justices.
No, you don't. What do you have?
I mean, what do you mean? You've got Thomas accepting the vacations. You've got Alito accepting various gifts, and then
that's not proven corruption.
Was it Roberts? I know, but I would open an investigation. We would find it. We would get it and say that's enough.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to
I mean,
find
I understand your reticence for it, but I mean, it's like I can say this is enough.
But then don't say that we have evidence of corruption. You don't.
Well, well, not in a court of law. I didn't say that. I'm saying that, hey, this is enough for us to say this is enough for us to impeach.
To impeach someone on you impeach someone when you have evidence that they have committed a high crime or misdemeanor that rises to a certain level, and you're not even close to that for any of the conservative justices. People will just throw that around like, oh, we know there's corruption because now the closest someone has gotten to that is maybe Alito lying about his wife or something, lying before Congress or something when he sent that letter. But I haven't actually had a convincing demonstration, I think, that he lied. There's some quibbling about an inconsistent statement, but for me, it doesn't rise to the level of him lying to Congress. And for the Clarence Thomas stuff, again, is it problematic? For sure. Do I think that there's a huge conflict of interest that needs to be addressed, and we need to have ethics rules that are more binding, or at least that people seem to take into consideration? 100%. Has it been shown corruption by members of the Supreme Court? I haven't seen it.
I think that I'm willing to read into a good behavior aspect of the Constitution far more generously.
What does that mean?
Well, they got served during good behavior. They didn't have good behavior, they're out.
What is that? Wait. Good behavior is a term of art meant to.
And if I have enough of the Congress and I have the presidency, it can mean what I want it to mean, and I can get rid of them, put in the people I want.
Well, no one doubts that. No one doubts that. You're just saying if I had the power, I'd have the power. But I'm just telling you what I'd be willing to support. I don't support just
sure. One second. Yeah, and I think it's fair to have the discussion about like how we want to go through that and things like that. I'm speaking of it more in a sense of like how like broad we could change that. Like you could make an argument, keep it within the Constitution under a theory of interpretation, and go that way. That's kind of where we were going with on that WIC panel. And I think to me, whenever I want to get back to what we were saying before, I think whenever we're talking about like trying to hold these people accountable, whether it's through formalizing the third Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, or Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, or some other way, I think that it's incredibly important that we find a way to do that, so it's not just a one-off for the Trump administration, stuff like that. I agree with you where it needs to be. That's why, on that panel, I defended Destiny's Nuremberg kind of use of that term to say how we should do those trials. But I agree with you more where we need to have an institutional process to have these things set and moving forward, because
I just don't want to be corrupt. Like I'm not going to be supportive of corruption. Now you can say, well, if we had the power, couldn't we decide? Yeah, but like doesn't mean I'm going to support it. I'm not going to support that shit. And one of the reasons why, if someone asked me, should we have Nuremberg for Republicans? One thing that Nuremberg did is it established new crimes that didn't exist at the time the Nazis were operating, right? So in that sense, I would not agree with a Nuremberg style, type format or process for the current Republicans or Trump. I'm not going to, like, the whole purpose of us trying to purge, again, peacefully, legally, MAGA from our political discourse and from power, and again, legally, politically win in the marketplace of ideas, not to, they can say whatever they want, is for the purpose of protecting the Republic and the Constitution. So I'm not going to be like, yeah, just impeach judges on bullshit legal theories that I don't actually genuinely believe. Now, the Section 3 thing, I think, is at least it's good faith because I think it can be enforced. And I think there's enough question on this, de facto officer doctrine. Do I think it stands a good chance? No. I think it's probably, like, if I had to bet, not likely to win. But it's at least a colorable, I think, plausible argument you could make in court, and one that I would support making. But I'm not going to support just impeaching judges because they disagree. That, I think, would not rise to the level of high crime or misdemeanor, or even this, I think, ludicrous interpretation of serving on good behavior.
So, you would let the 6 Supreme Court justices hold the country hostage?
Who said that?
Not allow the change that need to happen. Well, then what's the alternative that you're saying?
Well, I would add members of the Supreme Court because I think it's deserved. We need to add members of the Supreme Court to counter the Republican court packing, and that's within the hands of Congress. Can do that. Congress can, and I think they're legally supposed to adjust the Supreme Court if they want to. Impeachment even though Congress ultimately says what's a proper impeachment, right? Because they're interpreting. I do think that there are constitutional limits to, the Congress has to maintain their own oath of office. They can't just say, we're impeaching you because you're wearing a blue suit. Now, technically, do they have the power to remove because of that? Yeah, no one can question them, but they have a self-standing oath to follow. And I would not vote in favor of articles of impeachment for someone wearing a blue suit. Just like I would not vote in favor, notwithstanding that I have the power, to vote for impeachment of a judge because he disagreed.
Well, okay, that's fair. And I don't really have an argument against what you're saying. Like, I respect your position on that. I think that not to spoil anything for the video you're about to watch, but there's a good line that Destiny provides at one point where he says, conservatives hold themselves to the legal standard while they hold liberals to a moral standard, right? Conservatives are allowed to exist where they can do anything within the bounds of the law, but liberals are required to exist with the consideration of morality and things like that. And, for me at this point, I am not sure I see a reason to.
You got to play with both. You got to play with both.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but I'm just saying,
Democrats
it's hard right now for me to see why I would try to have a government that stays within this moral realm whenever right now we are so utterly kind of like shackled and harmed by the legal realm, right? When to me it seems like, okay, fine, if we do want the moral actions of the Congress to conform to what you say, and actually I think it's admirable what you say, I am unwilling to support that until it is codified, right? To me, I would actually be fine if Congress said, we're going to expand the bench, put these people on, and also we have now very clearly defined explicitly what we are able to impeach them for, and not have these general things. Because my other issue is that should the pendulum swing and go the other way, and even right now, during this administration, if they could impeach Kentucky Jackson Brown for bad behavior, they would. And I'm not willing to fight with my hands behind my back right now until we have those rules in place where, okay, this is a more moral, better system. Good. Let's write it down. Let's not all hope that we all agree what these words mean. Let's know what the words mean, right? And until then, I can only support a government that acts maximally within the legal bounds.
Well, I just view the problem is who has the power, right? The problem is that
of course
the Congress has this power of impeachment and removal, and they just have the power. That's the issue. Like, you can put whatever words you want for impeachment and say you can only impeach for this, but if it's unreviewable by another branch, then it's unreviewable. But the thing is, it's a high burden. You have to get a lot of votes to successfully impeach and remove somebody. But even put that aside, like, I don't think by operation of law you could adjust, either narrow or magnify the amount of impeachments. The impeachment clause is clear.
Well,
high crimes or misdemeanors. That's what you're supposed to impeach for.
Sure. But to me, I think that as long as that gray area exists, right? Because for me, it's important to me that whenever, and we've talked about this, whenever the MAGA administration or fascists act, it is important that we force them to do so when it's breaking the law. It's important that we don't give gray areas or vagary for them to hide behind, because they will always take it, and that will always provide them protection. And and I'm saying, if the expanding the court is the route we go to, that's fine with me. But I personally can only support that if there is a greater definition, where you're right, they can then come in and say, we now have enough power that we're going to impeach. But for them, instead of them saying we are limiting the ways we can impeach people or defining it better, they will have to make it more or easier to impeach people. These are clear signals of abuses of power. Whereas right now, they come in, they can just shrug and go, well, I mean, we can do it. It says good behavior, bad behavior, or whatever, right? So like, we can just impeach somebody.
Well, they haven't actually done it, and they haven't.
I know they haven't, but it's not but that's due to lack of the ability rather than the lack of. If they had the Congress for it, I would be surprised if they did not try to take at least Jackson Brown out. I think that's. Well, I would not be surprised.
They have the power now to invalidate her seat and just delete it by congressional action. They have the power if they want to expand the court.
Right. But see, that's what I'm talking about. There's the vagary behind. There's no vagary behind them removing her seat. That's a clear, explicit breaking with norms, breaking against everything we've done. If they had the power to impeach her, like the only argument for removing her in that case, they don't have a pretext. It's just we hate her, we want to get rid of her. If this good behavior thing, in that sense of the impeachment, they have that cover, and I want to remove that. And it sounds petty and small, but these are important things, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not going to remove it with words. I mean,
fascism.
They make it ambiguous what like invasion means. So you can try to be as narrow as you want and explicit as you want, at least at Trump level people. But I think that there's a little bit of a little understanding. I don't know if it's deep within you or wherever it is, that they aren't completely acting in this to the literal maximum they could have, right? They literally,
Sure.
if they wanted to, maximally could do more. We act as though the Trump administration is unconstrained. And in a way, they're very, very unconstrained by the law and all that stuff. But when I say that they're unconstrained, I don't mean that in its absolute literal sense. They could be doing more shit that's fucked up, and trying and pushing in different areas. They're constrained sometimes by public opinion. They're constrained by the slowness of the Congress sometimes. And yes, on some issues, they're constrained by their caucus as well. See no further than the Epstein issue. Trump was unable to corral his Congress to vote the way he wanted on the Epstein issue. How do you explain that?
Well, I think, because I don't view MAGA and especially the actions within government as this kind of monolith in the same way that a lot of people portray it. I do think that Trump is a very, very bad institutional politician. He's a very strong, very good populist. But the problem is that right now, all of his power is coming institutionally, and he's not doing the necessary steps to maintain that institutional power. And I think that him not being able to whip the votes for Epstein is a lot of the dog wagging the tail, where he needed to use people that were very into Epstein and things like that to get to where he is. And then now he's not able to back them down from that position, right? It's a similar issue as to that we saw in like the early teens of the 2000s, where we saw the Republican Party's willingness to bring on the evangelical right really started to show that their leaders now are doing it too, where before the leaders weren't really bought in the early 2000s and 90s, but they were happy to bring on the evangelical right because they get those votes. But then whenever we get into those kind of teens areas, now we're seeing leaders from those groups coming into the Republican Party, taking power, and the previous conservative regime now has to deal with the fact that they are bedfellows with these people at a leadership level. And I think that's accelerated with Trump, where he's absolutely willing to take anybody with him if it gets him to power, and he can't now control these people in Congress from doing it. Now, I agree with you that they could be maximal, and I think there is a calculation behind these things. I don't think they would get rid of Ketanji Brown for no reason at all. I think that I think there would be ways in which they would find a way to do it, or there might be a situation where it's beneficial, things like that. I could easily see them being willing to do it. So I think it's fair for you to say,
I think
they wouldn't do it on a whim. I agree with you.
I think it's if it's in their interest, they'll do it. But I just think the calculation is not totally aligned with Trump, and they don't view it in their interest for any reason, because the court is pretty firmly in their control anyway, at least for most things. I guess I'm not understanding your proposal. What is your proposal? What are we arguing about? What do you think that ought be done?
To
the extent that just make sure I understand. To the extent that I understood you, it's like when Democrats get into power, do a bunch of fucky shit, even if it's like dubious. And
no, that's word for word what I said. No, I understand what you're saying. I think for me, and something that I've had multiple conversations where it keeps coming up is, it seems to be that people are saying what is more important, prosecuting Trump and his admin, or institutional reform to fix everything? And from your side, I think a lot of your statements have been focused on prosecution, but I really like that I think you do still have the institutional reform added in with that. And so I think that
you
for
need
me,
both.
Right. And for me, I think that I've been, especially in the DGG community, people are dead set on prosecution. And whenever I try to talk about institutional reform, I can't have that conversation. So often I'm over here going like, I have to match energy with them basically. And so, yeah, it does sound like I want to come in and do a lot of fucky shit, but it's because I don't really have a sounding board that can talk about the nuance of it. So what I'm saying to you is, if what you're saying, like, if you don't like my extreme position, like, I'm totally willing to negotiate down from it. However, I need assurances. I would need assurances in those scenarios that there truly is an institutional aspect to
I
it
have no
going
power.
forward. Right.
I have no
I know,
power.
but,
No,
but you understand what I'm saying. If
no,
we're talking about this utopian thing,
I think Trump should be rotting in jail for his crimes. I mean, I am not someone who minces words. I just I don't want to break the law, the Constitution, or be corrupt to do it. And I think that people like immediately impeach Clarence Thomas. I'm like, no, for what?
Yeah, dude? I agree with you. We're coming in and making these. I mean, I was listening to people talking about impeaching senators, right? And I'm like, this is, come on, we need to
Senators
I think we should
can't
use a
be
scalpel
impeached.
approach.
Senators are not officers
discussion
of the United States.
There's a whole discussion about it. So to me, I think what really I'm coming in and what I'm saying to also the other side of it, the fucked up shit part of what I'm suggesting is, I respect your desire to defend the republic and preserve it in these different ways. I'm glad that Connor beat that into you.
Connor beat it into me? Are you shitting me?
I'm teasing you.
I love this country. It's just fucking an unrelenting rage and love for America.
Yeah, and I respect that a lot. However, and I'm just asking you, whenever you look at preserving it and things like that, and you're saying, okay, we need to stay within the bounds of this acceptable behavior, I don't personally feel super confident at this point that doing so will allow us to then come out of the Trump administration and create a lasting United States that will preserve the republic. I feel a lot of worry that if we limit ourselves within those, that it will instead leave room for MAGA and people like them to come in and destroy the republic in the future, right? And so it's that's just kind of where I'm coming from, is where it feels like, hey, look, right now we've shown that the system is broken, and while the system is broken, let's use all the powers we can to fix it and turn it into a system that won't be broken like this again.
I think 80% of it is a people problem, if I'm being honest with you. I think 80% of it is we have the wrong people in the wrong places of the government. And so I definitely think that there are aspects structural of the United States that I would change. First and foremost, it would be affecting the nature of the state system, in that we should add Puerto Rico to the state and the surrounding areas of DC, save for one little portion that needs to be maintained. There are ways to do it so that you don't fuck up with the electoral votes situation, because Congress is in charge of where those votes go anyway. They've just given it to the people of DC, and so there are ways we can adjust that. I want to enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, adhering to the ridiculous ruling in Anderson. I understand that that is something that seems a sentiment that seems to be shared among Democrats. I want to get rid of this immunity shit. So there's tons of stuff I want to do, and I think that the rules of the game give us plenty ability to do that. I don't think we need to break the rules, and I just think that there's an escalation. Part of it I think is cope, and just because we're powerless right now. And so there's a lot of frustration and anger, I think, to ratchet up the tension, in the sense of we should do this, we should be even crazier, we should be as crazy as, but we don't need to do that, and we ought not do it if we're serious about what we care most about, which is preserving the system of government. The effect of Trump, unfortunately, that's going to stay with us, and that's just something we're going to have to deal with, and we'll be dealing with it with the rest of our lives. The hobbits can't go back to the Shire. The Shire is scoured. We can't go back to the way we were. We can't go to pre-COVID. Pre-COVID time is over. There's this happened, and that affected our system, and it will always, just like 9/11, just like the Vietnam War, just like the Civil War. These are scars that shape us, and we're not going to be able to go exactly back.
Okay, so then just on that last point, then you're saying these scars that shape us. This happened. At that point, do you feel like whenever you are arguing to preserve the republic, you are not saying, I want to go back to the way it was before? You're saying, I want to preserve the good things in here, make it better, move forward. Because when I talk to someone like Counterpoints, it feels a little bit more like I want to go back rather than I want to make this better and move forward.
Counterpoints is I want to go fucking live with Elon Musk. If you see my recent, and you guys should all watch the recent debate I had with Counterpoints, it's on my channel. I don't know what the fuck that guy's smoking. He seems, maybe I had the wrong read of him, because I was about to write him off as a Democrat, but whatever he's smoking, it's fucked up. He's like, I might vote for J.D. Vance over Gavin Newsom. And so I don't know what drugs that guy's on or what his deal is, but it's there's some wild shit going on in his head. Maybe he's just like trolling me or something, but I don't know what's going on. But you guys should all watch that discussion, put a like and sub to the channel. But no, I what I'm saying is there are basic aspects of the Constitution that I don't want to touch. And those are what I think are like the essential core parts of our Constitution. That is like separation of powers, federalism, rule of law, due process. Those are like the most important things that we need because and the power stuff is more important than the right stuff. I want to stress that. I keep stressing it. The power stuff is more important than the right stuff because the right stuff all goes away when you unify power and when you get rid of the separations and the checks. So the most important thing is shoring up that structure by having better people in those positions and adding a few things here, take away the pardon power, take away immunity, make sure our judiciary isn't just fucking giving the president the ability to do whatever he wants. And honestly, there needs to be some legislation to the extent that these laws are being like interpreted fucked uply by the Supreme Court. I think we should adjust the Judiciary Act of 1789 to re-put in the universal injunctions or whatever, the Costa decision, all that stuff. So there's a ton of stuff that we can do to affect and protect the structure of the Constitution, and sometimes, yes, even take away irrelevant or counterproductive parts of the Constitution, like the pardon power, like other parts of the Constitution that we can talk about, electoral college. That's for another day. But in the core essence of what I want to protect is rule of law, due process, separation of powers, federalism, that like guardrails, the huge set of guardrails, the main components, I think, of our republic. That's what I want to preserve and support it.
No, that's fair. And, I think that, it's great to be able to talk to you. You're able to have a more nuanced conversation than I've had with a lot. And so I definitely respect that position. And like, I wouldn't even say I disagree with where you're at on it. I'm going to just do one. I know I've been taking up too much of your time. Last one, just because you talk a lot about electoral stuff. We've got, special elections coming. It'd be great if we get, even closer to where they have no vote margins. Are you worried at all that, let's say midterms come around, let's say we win these special elections, midterms come around, Dems take back House, maybe we fuck up the Senate somehow, something like that. We get really strong Democrats in the Congress, and we freeze everything down legislatively. And then let's just say in that scenario, Trump gets really defanged, and he actually, we had a bad first 2 years, but the last 2 years are just lame duck. Nothing happens, and then the temperature cools enough that when we get to 2028, people aren't gonna be as zealous as they are, like the conversation we just had. It's in the back of my mind where I feel like there might be kind of like, I don't want to kind of Biden effect of happening where everyone's like, well, we made it for that first term of Trump. Now Biden's here, we can all calm down and not really worry about politics anymore. And they just come back.
I think the odds of the temperature cooling are low, but if that were to occur, I guess if I determined, and I don't know who I am to determine, I'm just a guy. And so maybe I would ask pollsters, maybe I would ask, I don't know, fucking astrologists, maybe I would ask soothsayers or something, whoever I would ask, if I knew that pursuing this agenda would lead to some other alternate version of MAGA taking power, and we should just, focus on governing well, and that would lead to better results, I would focus on governing well and doing better results. You're basically the kind of thing is like, I'm not into retribution for its own sake. I happen to think that it's not retribution, it's justice, and it's justice for specific ends. It's for the incentive structures, deterrence, both general deterrence and specific deterrence. I don't only just want to generally deter other people in the future from doing this, whatever, again. I also want to specifically deter the actual people who are in these positions, and including the various different like underlings as well. And so, in the case in which there's criminality, I think there's an additional protection rationale. Like these are dangerous people that we need to like remove from our societies and apply to them like justice. But it's not retribution for its own sake. If I knew it would be counterproductive, if I knew that it would cause just a backlash that would be irrecoverable, I wouldn't pursue it. And so someone could make that case to me and I would buy it. And so if the temperature has cooled down, that just bringing this all up again would just like fuck over Dems, and so that we'd have a new MAGA that's even worse and it would destroy more. Like, I'm not going to do that just for its own sake.
Well, and to be clear, for me, my worry on that, like me having that worry, is not me saying, and so we need to change our current plan. I think we should continue the way we're going. However, it's on Dem leadership, it's on public figures to make sure that that doesn't happen. Not necessarily that we like keep the temperature up, but that we don't let people move on from it and say, yeah, we beat them in the midterms. That's good enough. Now everything go back to normal, right? I think that we should be maximally trying to increase Democrat power in the government right now.
Oh, most
But,
definitely.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why I'm like pissed at Schumer all the
yeah.
time.
Fair, and I think it's an even greater reason to have these discussions about democratic leadership and have discussions about the strategy and have the forward looking discussions that like you and I just had or that we're on the WIC panel where I think for the first half of this year at least, if not more, people have been really, really, really against even discussing the future beyond Donald Trump because it was just so difficult for people to do it. And I think that kind of is a form of doomerism that makes it hard for people to keep the momentum going, right? It's not just the goal of surviving Trump, but it's not just the goal of taking power back. The goal of us making the reforms we need to make so that we can live in a better country, so that this can't happen again, or it's harder to happen again, should be part of why we have momentum and that temperature should be up. So
here's a black pill, though. Normal people don't really care that much about this shit. The people who do
True.
are going to vote Democrats. So they can't. I think this is a high priority. It's my top priority is the structure of the country.
Yeah.
But that is contingent on Democrats performing well, governing in everything else that we're not talking about. And that's prices, that's healthcare, that's fucking whatever, cost of living.
We can't be the we hate Trump only party, right?
Yes.
We've gotta have other things because hatred only gets us so far. And it's useful and it gets us far, but I really want to make sure that that's where we're headed.
And I think that's going to require killing the filibuster. It's a non-starter to not be in favor of killing the filibuster. It is at this point anti-patriotic to not be in favor of killing the filibuster because Democrats are not going to have anywhere near the margins they need to do the things they need to protect this country if they don't get rid of the filibuster. That to me is almost like a fucking non-starter. And that's why like I do want us to pressure more of our legislators because they need to get into their heads now. As you said, the one area of complacency that I fear from is our geezer politicians who are just going along to get along and who apparently don't even think the Trump administration is that bad. That's the sense I get from some of them, not all of them. Certainly not all of them, but some of them. And so, yes, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So far as justice is concerned, it is a big issue for me. But perhaps the primary issue ought be making people's lives better and governing well.
Right.
Because if we don't do that, then this whole fucking thing is cooked. And the next generation, I think right now, the most plausible are going to be more Groyper adjacent type people. They're going to be more and more the kind of folks we're seeing. And that's even worse. That is almost even worse than what we have right now, because that's an ideology that isn't, that is affixed and not specifically to one person. Trump can almost, part of his abilities is his like kind of hold or hypnotic gaze that he has over his base in the Republican Party. He's been able to scotch tape a coalition together, but I'm scared of the Republican Party with an ideology that is more sincere and insistent on radical transformation dedicatedly to authoritarianism, and that is incredibly scary. That's one of the reasons why I find it. I'm going to shit on Connor a little bit again. Connor, if you're out there, we can talk more about this. When Connor's like, yeah, JD Vance is fucking great, like compared to Trump, I don't really get it. Like JD Vance would be disastrous. And maybe the only reason why I would prefer a JD Vance presidency if right now is because I have to have a sense that JD Vance would be less popular than Trump if he were given the full job, and that he would like go down even more because he doesn't have that cult of personality, and he would start to lose even more with Republicans. But if I'm going to go off of it, that's like the only reason, because JD Vance is going to use, just like, by the way, I feel like Maduro used some of the Hugo Chavez and Chavismo type stuff. I think JD Vance will be able to use this breaking of boundaries and of norms and all that stuff more patiently and in a more dedicated fashion than Trump is able to, that scares the shit out of me. And it scares the shit out of me that like Congress people are going to be more like Groyper adjacent. That's fucking terrifying. So we need to step up our game, because this shit does not end at the end of Trump's presidency.
Agreed. Well, hey, I appreciate you letting me be on for so long and chatting through this with me. It's good to talk to you. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving break. But speaking of counterpoints, we had him, me and Zip have a show, the E-Court. We had him on there. He had a really great showing on the debate there for tit for tat strategy stuff. So just a quick shout out to that one. And if anybody hasn't heard of it, the Pragmatic Papers is a really good newsletter you guys should check out. So Pisco, you have a great one. I look forward to seeing your coverage of this debate. I'm sorry for delaying it, everybody, because it's going to be hilarious to see you talk about it. So
Appreciate
you have a great
bro.
one, man.
Have a good one.
Of course. Bye.
Later. All right, bros. Sorry for the delay. I get interested in these conversations, and so people are, they do have the ability to delay my content if I find whatever's going on to be interesting. Okay, we're all situated. I don't know what this is going to be like.
The question is why? So, for instance, earlier
what the fuck? Wick is doing edited video. Good for you, Wick.
Talked about leftists celebrating violence. Why is Donald Trump incapable?
I love the fucking the looks that we're gonna do 1.25. The looks that Good Logic gives.
Saying the entire country needs to be less violent. Why is he incapable of saying anything that equally criticizes his side?
It just sort of rings as if you're trying to just whitewash, yeah, both sides are bad, when that's not reality.
Wait, two really quick and easy questions. Did Joe Biden condemn the BLM violence?
I wasn't looking to get into
the answer. If you don't know, that's fine. The answer is yes.
I don't know.
Capital punishment is not murder.
Sorry, I know you are pretending to be a lawyer, okay? But generally speaking, the president of the United States.
Has Donald Trump ever turned down the rhetoric? Is he only ever made it worse? The question's irrelevant. Donald Trump has no obligation.
The music is a bit too loud, Wick, but I do appreciate the touch. I actually do like this intro. I wish the music were 30% softer, but I do like the music. I do like the drama of it. So, kudos to you.
Okay, cool. So you're not going to answer my question. So you can stop talking right now.
No, we can't. I'll mute it. Oh, okay.
Oh, that's how he left? Did you copy my shit? Is this my logo, or did you have this for a while? You motherfucker. Did you copy my shit? Is this my logo? This piece of shit. Don't put it at 1.25. It's unintelligible. Okay. This guy said it.
I know.
Okay, can you hear us?
He's had this complete one. Has he had the broken up one? Has he had, because mine is it's like a glass stain. All right. So it's like, oh, you motherfucker. Oh, because I do ooh, you piece of shit. All right. So Wick is going to introduce the topic.
Beautiful.
Okay, great.
All right.
Are we ready to begin?
I want to thank you guys, by the way.
So I've interacted with Good Logic on numerous occasions. And the law of self-defense guy, this guy like chicken out of a debate or a discussion we had. He was being a bit weird in our exchange. So that's basically all I know of this guy. And some of his videos I found pretty shit, and his commentary on Twitter to be unintelligible, born on the line of incoherent rants. But they purport to be talking about Trump stuff and legal stuff even. So this interests me.
For working around my schedule also. It was very gracious of you both.
Of course.
So thank you.
Okay. Well, without further ado, let's get started. Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today, we're going to be discussing the recent shooting and killing of at least one National Guard member in Washington, D.C. So on November 26th, 2025, near Farragut West Metro Station in Washington, D.C., there was a shooting of two National Guard members, Specialist Sarah Beckstrom and Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf. Sarah Beckstrom has since died from her wounds, and Sergeant Andrew Wolf is still, as far as I can tell, in critical condition. The suspect is in custody. He is an Afghan national, Ramanullah Lakanawal. Excuse my pronunciations. I'm very bad at foreign names. There has been much discussion about why this happened and who is to blame. Tonight's prompt is Is Trump responsible for the shooting of these two National Guard? Why or why not? And we've got some great guests to talk about it. I appreciate you all for coming.
Is Trump responsible? I mean, they need to clarify terms, because if you mean causally, usually people don't attribute like mere but for causation to culpability. But I guess they're only there because of like the deployment or something. But that just seems like not what we would be talking about of like responsibility. And I don't think we know enough about the motives of this person yet to say that Trump is responsible in terms of culpability. That's a pretty wild position. If that's is that actually the take of Steven and Soy?
Apologies for a little tech support at the beginning, but we have to do what we got to do. I want to give the mic first to Destiny, and we'll just kind of go around, introduce ourselves, give us opening thoughts and what we have to say. Go ahead, Destiny. Open us up.
Okay, so I don't know if I would say 100% that Trump is fully responsible, but if anybody is responsible, he's pushed it basically as close to the line as possible. I think that Trump has engaged in behavior that...
So what I'm getting from that is like he doesn't think he's specifically responsible for this. So this is just a way. It's a what my guess is this is just like a eye-catching prompt to talk about the Trump issue. In which case, it's kind of a concession of the debate proposition in the first sentence, but I understand they want to talk about the Trump issue and like how it relates to violence versus Democrats. That's kind of what people are here for.
That has made all of the National Guards of every state and all of the federal police to have the most antagonistic relationship possible with all of the different states, or in D.C., just the territory of Washington, D.C. So I think that Trump is engaged in behavior that has increased the danger for all of the people that are deployed. I think that every single time a bad thing happens.
Okay, that's interesting. So the point there is that there's been an increase in risk towards the National Guard. So more of like he's doing things that increase the risk overall for the National Guard. And I don't really think that that's disputable. I mean, you're deploying them in cities. I think almost by necessity that increases the risk profile, as well as, I'm guessing, the specific like violence points.
I think that he tries to capitalize on it with some kind of policy. I would argue that Trump has been waiting for and loves these types of moments, and he's waiting for more moments like these to happen so that he can continue to expand on his executive power every time.
And there you kind of have the culpability factor, which is there is an exchange here, right? We're trading increased risk for some sort of appearance or policy or the potential to take advantage of it. And there you can get some sort of like risky behavior and malicious behavior. So I can see the culpability argument there. I don't know if I would, and maybe that's what he's disclaiming is the interpretation of that question that would be causal responsibility, but more like culpable, putting someone in needless risk for some malicious end.
It does. We saw him jump on this as soon as these two National Guardsmen were shot. I think he deployed another 500 to D.C. And yeah, I just think that Donald Trump is engaged on a war path where he wants to invite as much self-destruction as possible so that it gives him more excuses basically to leverage and expand his executive power and authority.
Okay, we'll get into it as we go. Next up, Soy Pill. What you got?
Yeah, pretty much what Destiny said. I would add that Trump, is inflaming all of the tensions by, illegally putting the National Guard into all of these places. He's violating posse comitatus. He's going against the wishes of various governors and even the National Guard themselves, who say they don't need to be there and don't want to be there. Then essentially putting the blame on him by putting people in places they don't need to be and inflaming the tension so that when violent things happen, he can justify doing it more.
Okay, that's their angle, is increased risk overall to the National Guard. So it's a different kind of culpability than we're talking about. I mean, I don't think anyone would say that like that's almost true by necessity anytime you deploy like forces anywhere, I guess. But here, what's really, I think, undergirding their assessment is that the purpose isn't what is some kind of laudable end of government. It's not actually to lower crime. It's for some kind of appearance thing or to some kind of like assumption of executive power, which, I'm a very sympathetic ear to that kind of argument. Though, again, I wouldn't say that he's responsible for the specific shooting. If that were the prompt, maybe a proposition that is Trump risking the lives of our National Guard for bad ends? I would say yes, but the proposition seems to be, is he culpable for this person's death or the shooting? Maybe they're interpreting it in like a different way or whatever, but on the specific proposition, as I understand it, I'd be like, no, but on their like more interesting question, I would say yes.
Having more executive power, it is very clearly at least his fault insofar as this never should have happened and wouldn't be happening under a Kamala presidency. Obviously, Donald Trump didn't shoot these.
That's the but-for causation argument, which is like literally it wouldn't have happened if they weren't there. That is, those specific people wouldn't be shot. That's, again, like a very boring and literalist interpretation. I can't imagine they want to spend some time on that.
People, but also by the Trump magatard standard of Trump, the
stuff
Biden
happens under president, therefore responsible. Good point, applying their standard. I like that.
Administration letting all these illegals in and then saying, oh, well, it's his fault for letting them in. Trump's administration granted this person asylum, so I'm also...
By their standard, yes.
Going to give him blame for that.
Okay, thank you for being here. I'm sure we'll get into it. Good logic.
Yeah, I'm Joe Nierman, aka Good Logic. I'm a New York attorney, converted.
I don't know. He makes me laugh. I know that this is not like super. I can't help but like Joe a little bit personally. Maybe it's our like the interactions we've had, but he just he does piss me off though, and obviously everything he says is fascist bullshit. But
into a podcaster and the nonsense that the left is trying to. When I first heard the topic discussion was Trump is to blame for the shooting of the National Guard, I actually laughed out loud that they could try to spin this, that what it starts with is a premise that everything Trump is looking to do is motivated by evil. This is just an assumption that they build into whatever he says or does, that his objective is to just basically harm.
I think that Joe falls into a very like obvious trap here by engaging with Steven and Soy Pill on their construal of the conversation and being like, Trump's not about evil, he's about good, and it's like, your opinion, man. Now he's gonna like open the can of worms and like the entire arsenal of all the evidence of this administration and the previous one for them to utilize against him. And so if I'm just taking a strategic view here, I don't think Joe should bite that bullet. He should be like, are you conceding the proposition that he has no culpability? Like, this just seems like but maybe he wants to go there, but it just seems like he's totally fallen for a trap, which is to talk about something that potentially related to the proposition, but isn't actually. In terms of optics, I think he comes out looking like a Trump dick suck.
Harm as many people as possible, and then they take a situation that they'll create a situation that is as volatile as possible and ratchet it up, going back to Biden bringing in ridiculous numbers of millions.
And now it just sounds like a fucking bringing in. I love this. And what is it going to be? 70 million?
Millions of illegal aliens, letting them stream across our borders.
So rather than go into like the stronger point, which is like, you guys, are you really on your lights think that he's culpable for this specific death? Why weren't you on this panel? I was not invited. I would definitely talk to Joe and this guy. I tried to talk to the law of self-defense guy, but he just seems like a bit of a pussy. Don't let him see this, because then he'll probably never talk to me.
Then trying to defend the criminal aliens. He's not even trying to get rid of your run-of-the-mill illegal aliens.
So now he's talking about immigration enforcement. Instead of taking the stronger position, which is like, you guys have not demonstrated his individual culpability in this shooting. Like, if it wouldn't have been these people, it would have been someone else. Those kinds of arguments. He's now in the weeds on immigration and what his motive is, in like asking the audience to question whether Trump's motives on immigration are correct or not. It just seems like strategically stupid. Thank you so much for the memberships.
He's trying to get rid of criminals and screaming and standing in front of ICE and trying to stand in front of federal officers doing their performing their duty. And
he's also not being especially eloquent.
Then they turn around and say, well, this is all Trump's fault, while the left is continually ratcheting up the violence, ratcheting up just how they want their side to be as angry as possible. You'll hear them say, go out there.
But now he's biting the bullet even further and making this like an all against all fight, which suits Soy Pill. And thank you so much. Well, shout out to Pisco for very possibly landing that high profile World of Debate championship debate thingy Be sure to like and retweet so our boy gets. Thank you so much, Josiah. I really appreciate it. Shout out Josiah, Pondering Politics. Really, really miss you on Live and Learn. Maybe we can invite you one of these days. But yeah, it's word war debate, not world war debate. But yeah, appreciate that. I also think it's not wise for Joe to just make this a battle of all against all for the reasons I stated. But additionally, adding on top of it, the specific questioning of Trump's motive, I just think that is not very smart. I think you should stick to the facts here, because now he's kind of going into like, well, the left are violent, and he's kind of insinuating perhaps this person was inspired by left shit, and that will open himself up to an internal critique on the evidence for that, which I don't think is very significant as of now.
March, go out there, march. You'll never hear the left say, make sure you do it peacefully. You'll never hear that at all. And then when there's this terrible incident, which I assume that the people who are arguing against me would admit at least that this is a tragedy, that Sarah Beckstrom was shot. Another person I think is still in critical condition when I list.
And this is like just meaningless pandering to the crowd. Like, what, you guys think shooting people is bad? Now, in Stephen's case, I he said some fucking unhinged thing I don't agree with. On the Kirk stuff, he always manages to find a way to like say, I would admit it, but just not in front of you guys type thing. But I think in general, it's a bad position. I don't say that you need to like cover up for Charlie's who he was in that sense, or to like pretend that the left are responsible or anything, or apologize. Certainly not. But this kind of pandering, I don't think is ever useful. I just tune it out whenever I hear it.
Heard. So that I think they would admit that this is a tragedy. Then they turn around and they say it's Trump's fault. It's Trump's fault because he's trying to enforce the law, which is just preposterous. But I look forward to getting into
and he's just trying to enforce the law. Even the way he structures that, he's just trying to enforce the law, now calls into question Trump's motive and what he's doing. So a horrible intro, I think, just even from the perspective of conservatives, you can't be very happy with how that started out. You're opening yourself up to all sorts of like pushback, really only going to be convincing to people who are already on your side. And I think just a very narrow proposition has just been expanded mostly by you. I mean, I would say Joe's response here expands the nature of the conversation even further than Soy and Destiny's, which was, I think, a liberal interpretation of the prompt at best.
Legal arguments, so we can break this down for all of you.
Okay, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Next up, Andrew Branca. Is that how you say your last name? I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
It
doesn't matter because you're going to be gone, because we know you're a runner.
Of course, I'm an attorney. I'm probably best known for the law of self-defense. I'm an expert, probably the preeminent expert in the nation on use of force law. And I do a lot of...
Are you fucking serious, this guy?
Legal and political commentary. I think there's no rational view in which Trump has any legal responsibility for what happened here. We have an Afghan assassin who walked up to a woman with a revolver in his hand.
I think everyone would concede that. So,
and shot her through the chest.
But I actually do think that's a more effective start than Joe's, in that he's trying to call attention to the prompt.
Only one person who caused that death. That's the Afghan rebel.
I think that's very great vulnerability for them to be like, oh, only one person caused that death, so you're now going to disclaim any responsibility that all of the right was saying that it was the responsibility of Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin, right, and the Democrats. It's only one person responsible, right? So, I mean, I think that's like true in the culpability sense, but it's just not one that the right, and maybe that gets to the point that that the left is trying to make.
Can engage in all kinds of estrogenic butterfly effects, and Trump is the bad daddy, so everything that happens that's bad is Trump's fault.
That's basically, but Soy Pill was self-conscious about that standard being your standard, right? That critique was one using your standard. And so I very much like resent that. What you should say is we never applied that to Joe. We were blaming Biden for things that he was like causally having a role in, or his omissions. We weren't just willy-nilly basing it off, but the problem is they were. That's the problem, is Soy Pill is correct here. But fighting him and a person who's cognizant that that's a ridiculous and absurd standard, not very effective. The person knows that it's absurd. It's just, you're opening yourself up to, well, you blame Biden for XYZ and, for example, inflation or something, and that wasn't his fault.
But Trump has executive authority under Article 2.
Sorry, I'm a pauser, so if that bothers you guys, I'm very sorry.
He's the democratically elected president. He's allowed to do things, including trying to ensure the safety of the American populace.
So now you're bringing the legality of his actions into question directly, and it's not a very convincing response, except to the extent that we're like, legally culpable for whatever's going on. That's not what the question calls for. The question calls, is he responsible? And someone with legal authority to do something can nonetheless be responsible. You could have legal authority to order troops to storm something, and then all of it turns out it was a trap, and they all get fucking slaughtered. Some people might still say that you're responsible. So I just don't think that. I think focusing on the issue of culpability cannot just be interpreted in a strictly legal sense. Though I think it's good to focus on the prompt issue, because I think opening it up opens yourself up even wider. Having too narrow of a focus to like the legal culpability that none of these people would assert, I think is far too narrow and like obnoxious of you to take of the question. But then getting an additional point about, well, Trump's authorized to do everything he's doing, is just calling into question all of these actions and just opening up tremendous amounts of lines of attack from these two gentlemen. I hope that they're able to take advantage.
In its city. And if bad things happen because he's doing things he's allowed to do, it's the bad people who made that happen.
Really? That is an unjustifiable standard. So there's no amount of provocation. There's no amount of irresponsibility. So you would say that about Biden? Well, he's allowed to do what he's going to do. And if bad people cross the border in spite of what he's doing or in spite of whatever, then he can't take any responsibility. That is a standard that you would never apply. That people who have authority don't ever have to live with the consequences or deal with the consequences or assume responsibility for what that is just crazy. Maybe it explains some of their mindset about why they just like throw Trump off the hook for so much bad shit, is they think in his mind that he has the legal authority to do everything. I mean, that's just an insane standard that no one should accept.
Okay, and with that, let's kind of get into
What
it.
a pathetic opening statement. I think that was horrible. I think Good Logic's, opening himself up to more vulnerabilities. But that was just like that cannot stand the. Maybe that's why he leaves. I don't know. That just seems like an absurd standard.
As we go, I guess I'd start by reading a tweet from Destiny here. And I'm curious if you stand by this position, sir, and then we could just kind of get into the open discussion. You said on 9/15 on November 26th, you wrote as follows: they weren't protecting D.C. They couldn't even make arrests. They were sent there to die by real Donald Trump and his cronies, so they could rile up the base to distract them from the monumental failing of every single part of this administration. Is that your current position, sir?
They sent them specifically so they be killed. I don't know if I'd go that far. I think that they're going there to stoke tensions and to assert executive authority. And if shit happens, they're going to take advantage of it. I think that's the idea. I don't know that they specifically are doing it for the conscious object that these people die. I think that is a consequence they're willing to live with to further their conscious object, which is the centralization of executive authority and the imposition on the American people and the use of the armed forces as an instrument of political will. I don't think I have the evidence to show that they specifically want the people to go there to die, but maybe he'll clean that up a little bit.
Yes, I think that Trump is trying intentionally to inflame tensions as much as possible.
Okay, well,
so that he can expand his executive power as much as possible.
But that's not what you said. What you said was to go die, specifically to go die. And I think the better thing is like he'll take advantage of it, and he doesn't care if they do or if something happens. Different than it's what they want to happen.
One thing that you're going to hear over and over again in this debate, it's already happened in the opening statements, is remember, every single time a conservative criticizes a Democrat, it's about what they should do, what their moral obligation is, and what a good leader would do to guide the country. But whenever they talk about Trump or the conservatives, it's always what is the outer perimeter of legal actions that he is theoretically allowed to take. This
is what Kafka was saying?
No question of whether or not his leadership is moral or what his end game is on anything, although he would fail in the legal realm as he has been over and over again, and he would fail on these other two as well.
That's in response to whether he has the authority to do certain things, not whether or not he would fail as for the murder of this woman.
But like the question is why? So for instance, earlier you talked about leftists celebrating violence. Why is Donald Trump incapable of saying that the entire country needs to be less violent? Why is he incapable of saying anything that equally criticizes his side?
So I'm like, on the one hand, like I totally agree with this sentiment. It just doesn't seem at all that anyone wants to touch the prompt of the debate, which only in my mind matters, right? Because all you guys are like, who cares about the prompt or whatever? Let's just talk. It's the same conversation with interesting people that you've kind of brought on. When I say interesting, I just mean like people who have some reputation in conservative circles on like a proposition that you really don't have an interest in defending. It's the same argument, and now with the added, I think, bonus as far as the left is concerned of seeing these right-wing lawyers probably embarrass themselves on bullshit and defend the indefensible. But it just does seem like the prompt is like a mere guideline, and maybe that's what it's intended for. But it would piss me off.
And this is open discussion, so.
Right, and this is what the left this is what you on the
and Joe bites the bullet, and it's a trap set, and Joe will immediately bite that because he'll want to defend against that point.
Left tend to do. It's you're continually ratcheting up the violence, and then you're looking for an all sides type of thing. And to harken back, and I don't want to get into the whole Black Lives Matter thing, but when we look,
oh no, yes, so he's chomping at the bit to actually take this on, and on that, I think they're going to lose. I don't think they have a leg to stand on there on the BLM. And I saw some in the intro. So this is stupid.
Back in 2020, when we saw
these guys don't condemn Jan 6. These guys think it was like a fucking picnic. These guys don't condemn any violence on their own side. And that just goes to their point. So are they going to beat them around with that?
Black Lives Matter issue rise up. It was considered an affront for people and offensive for people to say all lives matter. Now, I think that if you...
Oh, you know why the connotation there is why. It's not because the sentiment itself literally is wrong. And we love to do this fucking... It is so annoying when people just obviously miss the point that when we're speaking literally, no one takes the issue with the all lives matter characterization. Literally, it's a beautiful sentiment. All men are created equal, all lives matter, all that shit. You're equivocating. You're addressing the sentiment in its literal terms versus the movement that emerged out of a response to the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's not impressive. This is like 2017 talking point. This is so old.
You actually step back from a practical perspective, you would agree that all lives matter. But given the context, the idea of saying all lives matter in that context was deemed offensive because there was some perceived unique...
You would understand that, right? I mean, you guys understand contextually things being different. And it's not an offensive notion. Right now, you're saying, to show how like far we've fallen, they're saying that like military members have a right to disobey legal orders. The context of the current environment makes it so that is sedition. They're calling these people the seditious six, like sedition. And so surely you must have some sympathy. They don't, they're hacks for, contextual meanings of phrases and terms as they emerge. It would be like saying, well, the Nazis say National Socialists, so they're communists. It's like the same level of, I think, engagement with that. But, I'm sorry for pausing.
Terrible position for the Black community. And it was as if you were disparaging their genuine plight by just trying to make it a general concern. So when you...
That wasn't what was being attempted. What was being attempted in that movement was not just making it, quote, a general concern.
Here, Destiny, and you say, why can't he just say that all sides need to dial it back when there's been just bludgeoning from one side?
And what is, what are we talking about here? I don't even know if I understand the comparison being made. Is the comparison, how could you say Trump needs to dial the rhetoric down for all of us in terms of violence when it was a social taboo to say all lives matter? It sure didn't stop a lot of you motherfuckers, just to be honest. And, woke is dead or whatever. So, but like, what is the comparison? That how can you say Trump needs to say all sides need to reduce violence when we said all lives matter, we had some social shame? It's so stupid. What a dumb comparison.
Against the other, it just sort of rings as if you're trying to just whitewash. They're like, oh yeah, both sides are bad, when that's just not reality. It's not reality that we're actually experiencing.
Two really quick and easy questions. Did Joe Biden condemn the BLM violence?
And this is, I think, clever from Stephen. He's not responding to Joe's point directly. Joe's point about language is basically like, it's a weak point anyways. I don't know if it's a stupid line to go down. It's something approaching, why should we believe you're coming in good faith about all lives, all sides violence, and you're doing a whataboutism thing when All Lives Matter and versus BLM. It's kind of questioning the sincerity. Oh, then I guess it is responsive, because what he's saying is, in the context of the implicit assumption where there is a parity or something, or to the extent that there's not a parity, it's in the Republicans' favor. Now let's go through specific points. So maybe he is gathering like the thrust of what Joe is saying here is like, you're trying to say that we're all the same, and we're trying to say that like the Democrats have a moral high ground, but they don't. And he is kind of responds to that. So I guess it is responsive as I think about it. Thank you so much for membership. Wow, memberships. How many? Wait, a lot. 10. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for membership. Really helps me out. Really helps. Really fucking helps. But yeah, so I think it is it's responsive to the thrust of what Joe is saying is, you guys don't have the moral high ground, which I think is another weak position for. This is informed by my personal bias about where I side. And so I guess Stephen has responded to the thrust of that.
I wasn't looking to get into
the answer. If you don't know, that's fine. The answer is yes.
I don't know.
That's fine. No, wait.
Wait, you don't know that they condemn the violence? I don't believe. I mean, like, come on. How many of these conversations of BLM versus Jan 6 versus the violence of the right and left, you don't know that the Democrats condemned the violence? It must have been produced to you at some point, or you're in such a echo chamber. This is insane.
Well, I know you don't care because you don't care to make any factual. So the answer is yes, number one. And number two,
I think it is relevant. As I think about it, I think it is relevant. You brought up basically that there's a lack of parity, to the extent there is, in the Republicans' favor, because you did this whole All Lives Matter, and then you accused him of saying that you're pretending as though there's a parity. So you're calling into question whether or not there is, in terms of rhetoric or something. And I don't think it quite tracks with the BLM terminology. I'm not following his brain completely. I'm grasping some of the straws there, but I do think it's responsive to the thrust, which is you're suggesting that the Democrats have a bigger skeleton in their closet, and he's responded to that. I think it's relevant.
1 second.
Not to the prompt, surely not to the prompt, but to this little isolated back and forth.
We can't. No one can hear each other. Hold on, just real quick. Hey, just housekeeping.
You brought up BLM.
Yeah, you brought up
BLM. Yeah, I mean, you did bring up BLM. Now, he brought it up in the context, I think, of making a point that, what is it going to say?
BLM,
no, I did bring up BLM, but I brought it up to make a point that in certain
your point is wrong. That's the point I'm making. That your point is stupid.
Okay, we don't need this. Your point is stupid. So you got to hear him out.
The point that I'm making is that in certain
just let him talk. I would just let him talk, because I think he sounds like a fool.
Situations, when you try and just
maybe he's trying to get in his head,
deflect to saying, let's just make this a general message, it's ignoring the actual problem.
Okay, then I think that if that's what he meant, then it's not responsive. Let me think. Oh, no, it is, because then now he's saying the actual problem is on the left. So no, it's directly responsive, Joe. Because he's saying it's ignoring the actual problem. So in the context of the BLM, the actual problem was like the police brutality as the way the BLM saw it, and it wasn't responsive to the problem. And what he's doing is trying to appeal to you by saying, yeah, you understood it here. You should understand it when I say it, that the actual problem is with the left, and that's Destiny actually countering that notion. So I think it's responsive even under your lights, Joe.
You're trying to purposefully ignore the actual problem. In 2020, you wanted to. The left was saying that the other side is ignoring the problem by trying to say all lives matter. And what I'm saying is you're ignoring the problem by trying to say.
It was a super easy question. Did Biden?
It's too much of like a mouthful to get out, though. You should just get out with the point. Like, this is not. What is your point? Shouldn't be this cute about the comparison to BLM, especially with someone who, like, Stephen said unhinged shit about BLM, and the Democrats condemned the violence, or at least most the prominent ones did, right? So it's just a mouthful. Just come out and say, this is a problem mostly of the Democrats. If that's your point, make it. But it's too much of a mouthful. I don't think it helps him.
Condemn the BLM riots. Did Biden condemn the violence?
I have no idea. He wasn't.
And he now this. I mean, come on, bro. Come on. You don't know. You've done enough of these debates.
Empowered during the BLM riot. So
he
I don't
was
know
running
why.
for. He was running for election because he was running for election.
It's not relevant when he's not in power. What they do? That's insane. His views aren't relevant. They're only relevant the moment he takes office. And so the fact that he's condemning it you don't get points for that. Not to mention when Biden condemned violence when he was in power. This is so dumb.
Base of the Democratic Party.
You literally can't even answer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was the nominee, or he at least at bare minimum prominent candidate at the time of the BLM stuff. That was May 2020, right? Is that the Floyd killing, May 2020? So he would have been well and truly the nominee at that point.
So you don't even know? Why even bring up BLM? If you don't know anything was going on at the time, then just don't bring it up.
How do you not know, though?
That was the first question. So the answer is yes. You can go research it later. The second question is, did Donald Trump pardon every single J6 protester?
Hey, gang, both of you.
Yeah, I would let him talk.
Both of you, please. We can't hear when you guys are talking over each other, so I'd ask that, again, you wait for the other person to finish their statement, then you can respond, and I'll try to make sure that you aren't interrupted during your response, and that's what we're going to do. So finish it. Just real quick, Soy Pill. Let Logic finish his statement, and then you can jump in, and Andrew seems to want in as well. So this will.
I would rather this be just one-on-one, not that whether it's Soy Pill versus one or Steven versus one. And I would almost rather it be Branca, to be honest.
No, I'm fine. I mean, I always
what I'm
have stuff to
saying
say,
is
but I'll let you guys go. It's okay.
Don't do this when you're on panels. Do this little like petty little. I'm just waiting. Who the fuck are you trying to appeal to? This kind of like bitchy shit. It's kind of fucked up shit. This is some whack little fucking passive aggressive. I already don't like that. Why? It just looks like you're a little cuck. I'll take whatever you want to give me. Fine.
I'll tag you in soon.
Like, look, he looks so hot and bothered already and annoyed. Chill, bro. Just speak up. Learn to say something. Don't just be like a little beta waiting for your turn.
Brother.
He's about to yap and not answer either of those questions, by the way.
No, my point is that you're trying.
Well, he did answer the first one. He said, I don't know if Joe Biden condemned the violence, which is
to deflect into something that's relatively meaningless as to whether or not he actually condemned it. Who cares? How is that?
Who cares if he condemns the violence? Aren't you guys talking about the parity in, the messaging and ramping up tensions? Isn't that exactly what you guys are talking about?
Relevant to the point I was making. The only point I was making
is you were responding to Steven asking, why can't we just turn the temperature down? Your response, this is so stupid. How are condemnations not relevant in that context, especially when you brought up, well, I get, in his mind, the BLM stuff wasn't relevant for the BLM topic, but just to show that you can miss the forest for the trees when you just, hyper focus on a generalized statement as opposed to where the problem is. But again, that's raising the issue of condemnations because that's what you're responding to. And Biden condemned. And also, Kamala Harris gets, oh my God, I hate the bail fund. Would you ever say, oh, I guess she was a senator at the time, right? So she was in office. Oh, see, I already know how these people think, so I can rebut my own argument in their twisted, deformed logic. That, it counts for Kamala Harris when she did the bail fund retweet because she was technically in office, and Joe Biden, even though he was the leader of the party and even though he was the presidential nominee and even though he was deciding everything, it doesn't count because he wasn't technically in office. Who buys this garbage?
The violence.
Yeah.
What do you mean, how is it relevant? It speaks directly to the issue. Hold on, just one more. I'm going to do this one more time, and then if he doesn't answer, that's fine. So the first question is, did Biden condemn the BLM rights? The answer is yes.
I have no idea.
Did Donald Trump? That's fine.
No idea.
Answer my second question.
You asked me a question. I answered it.
What?
I mean, you're answering a question.
He did answer it.
For me, and you asked me a question, which I assume is a sincere question, and then you try to say yes, he did.
This is not worth your time, Joe. This is not worth your time. You're wasting your yapping time to do this. Just say it once. I answered your question. I don't know, and you asked it again because you're whatever. Say it quickly. This is taking too much time.
So I say, when did he? When did that happen?
He did it on August 31st, 2020. Look at.
Did he have that? Did he have that pulled up? Oh, dude, Joe.
YouTube Global News. It's a video titled Joe.
You should know, and I hate this shit because it's everything. They make you have to prove gravity in these conversations. You have to prove the. Seriously, in the last conversation I had with Ryan Mullally, it was having to prove the universal. Uniform nature of reality and having to prove what grounds all of existence in these precept debates. Everything needs to be if they don't have their ducks in a row, they have there's no normative obligation or reputational obligation they have for not having facts prepared or not knowing a particular thing. They don't get any shame or people don't talk shit about them if they are completely ignorant about something. But Tim Pool will bring up some random shit Did you know that in the town of Chicago 40 years ago, they bulldozed homes in this one neighborhood in this section? Like, and they'll be, oh, wow, I can't believe you didn't know that. But they have no like self-standing obligation to inform themselves about anything. And they don't pay any penalty for looking completely ignorant.
Biden condemns violence and ongoing U.S. protests. There you go. Look it up on your own time. The second question is, did Donald Trump pardon?
And this is, I think this is such a tell, such a fucking tell that he got your ass. And yeah, I mean, you're laughing because like, come on, everyone fucking knows this. This is such a ritual conversation that the condemnation that we're talking about here is like a truism. It's like it's almost like a parameter of the debate. If you have these kinds of debates online, you know that Biden condemned, and they have some rationale. Oh yeah, he said it one time, two times, whatever. That doesn't really matter. Blah, blah, blah. So like the fact this is like a basic. It might seem weird for you, from the outside if you're not like used to these kind of debate circle type stuff, to be like, oh well, wait, he's supposed to know what specific condemnation Biden had about a specific day. But it's similar to the raised level of importance that some of these like moments in Trump's first term have, like when he said the fine people, right? That is like the bleach comment, right? Disinfectant. These different comments become cliches within the debate circles because we just go over them over and over and over. And that's why there's like such this like disbelief that he couldn't know it, is because it's such a cliche. And in these specific debate circles, we're all like aware of this. This is like kind of like common knowledge because it's like very, very often raised whenever anyone brings up BLM or condemnations of violence. So that's why there's this kind of like incredulity that he wouldn't know that. And that's why like people are kind of annoyed that they're like laughing about it.
Every single J6 protester / rioter.
100%.
Okay.
100% he did.
But the reason this isn't irrelevant, God logic, is because we're talking about how Trump has made the conditions for this violence to happen. Yeah, he didn't pick up the gun and shoot these National Guard members.
Well, that's conceding the proposition, I guess, and the literal interpretation of it.
But he's drumming up the rhetoric. And when you say, hey,
drumming up the rhetoric for what? Now you're suggesting that, wait, drumming up the rhetoric for random violent attacks? Be more specific here, Soy. If some right-winger said this about left-wingers' statements, I would pounce. Not just because, though, like I think that the statements from the respective senators aren't inculpatory, but also because we don't know the facts about the specific case. And so I think you have a responsibility in this moment to be like, I'm not, I'm speaking of in general violence. The thing is that kind of removes you from the proposition. But I just don't like this, that it could be construed that we're talking about like, because this guy could be motivated by anti-Trumpism, anti-MAGism. He could be motivated by radical Islam. He could be motivated by fucking anything, by Looney Tunes. I don't know, but like I don't want that to be a kind of unstated thing. That makes sense. Love you, Soy.
Left never says be peaceful. Destiny brings up an example of Joe Biden explicitly doing that, and then we point out that Trump is refusing to condemn the right and is actually calling for the deaths of people in his own government. That this is part of the rhetoric that is causing.
Who's he? I think he means the Congress here.
These National Guard people to be shot, and you say, well, all lives matter. Oh, I'm deflecting to BLM. It's got to be a generalized statement. No, we're saying he needs to say turn down the rhetoric, and he's doing the opposite. He's inflaming everyone. He's getting people killed. That's where the blame comes from.
Well, first and foremost, I appreciate the promotion from good logic to God logic, but it's just good logic.
He did say that.
And
I hate this.
Oh, sorry.
Second,
if you don't have Riz, don't. I wouldn't try it.
It's
like an awkward laugh. I appreciate it.
That's okay. No, that's okay. I just want to make sure we know.
He spent like 8 seconds on this little joke
we're talking to here. But the point that you're trying to make, as far as him escalating, you have to sort of have to step back for a second and ask yourself, what exactly is he supposed to be dialing back from the right? You're saying that the left is that after there's violence that happens, the left tries to dial it back. What I'm saying to you is, what violence from the right are you even saying that he should be dialing back? You're trying to sit here and say that he should be
when he's saying we should hang members of our government. Well, you're asking me a question.
No,
when he says we should hang members of our government, yeah.
Through trial. Through trial.
Through trial. No way. No way. I mean, I don't think he's being a good advocate right now. I think that if you're taking the conservative position, you're like, listen, Trump says wacky stuff. I don't think it's connected to violence. I don't support this statement. But it would require, it's just untenable because they would have to criticize Trump, I think. What's the line you walk? I don't support him saying that, but I don't think it's ratcheting up tensions because I don't think the right is violent. Something like that.
There's a very big difference between saying, "Hey, these people need to be tried for some very serious crimes that I believe they committed
and murder." Yeah,
because he believes they committed them.
Capital punishment is not murder.
Excuse me, sorry, not murder. Just kill.
When you're
Yikes. I think the contention you have to deal with here, Good Logic, is we think it's pretextual, the basis to say it's sedition. Where I would say, like, I would get into the weeds here and be like, do you think it's sedition, yes or no? And do you think that this is protection? Like, but they're just going to say whatever Trump, it's logically possible. There's no entailed logical contradiction with Trump genuinely believing he won the election, with him genuinely believing that they did a crime, with him genuinely believing that the punishment for that crime is death. And so how can you say he's malicious if he genuinely believes all this stuff? It's the same. This, in other words, is a fine distillation of the arguments and dodging and deflecting that we've come to learn to deal with on a daily basis from MAGA.
when you're the head of the executive and you're saying that your political opposition needs to be investigated, when we've already seen him fabricate indictments, calling out.
Yeah, he didn't just say investigate. He said they should be punished and they should be fucking killed, hanged.
Specific bullshit.
Trump was
that's fine, but the president of the United States isn't ordinarily. Sorry, I know you are pretending to be a lawyer, okay? But generally speaking, the president.
I don't think that's called for.
President of the United States does not give direct instruction to the head of the Department of Justice to issue indictments. That's why the last two cases.
He's allowed to do that. They work for him. Doesn't make you sound sane at all. And this is, I'm so glad that I talked a little bit about the unitary stuff right now, because when you break it apart and just take a step back at this whole thing, and you realize that it's atextual, when you realize it's not backed by the structure of the Constitution either, and when you realize it's just asking for like unlimited corruption all the time, and for these dipshits to be like, technically he can order his people to do whatever he wants. He could order the DOJ to shoot someone. He controls the FBI, so he could shoot, order an FBI to shoot who carry weapons to shoot someone. You look like an insane person. You look like you're justifying a king. I think it's a horrible look, especially because you're coming in with this kind of, technically it's legal. And dude, as someone who does that a lot of the time, it doesn't win you a lot of friends. Let me tell you that. I've learned that the hard way, is when you come, technically. Now, is it my want to do it sometimes? Sure. But in a conversation that's really grounded on ethics and moral culpability here, you're not going to win yourself friends here. But I don't know what other approach you have if you're committed to being a Trump dick suck, which these guys,
Oh, that's great. Well, do they work for him though? Because it seems like she wasn't even legally appointed, was she? Isn't Lizzie Halligan out now? Didn't all that get tossed now? Seems like it's all gone now, right? Huh? All right, looks like that wasn't very legal.
Well,
huh?
you gotta let Andrew respond.
Yeah, this kind of like shit-eating grin. Maybe it works on whatever the Ricada, laid back law stuff, but it's not I think super effective for this kind of discussion. It just looks like you're flippant and you're not really taking seriously the corruption issues being brought up. Just looks like you're not engaging. You're just laughing, and you're like an implicit argument from absurdity.
Andrew, respond. Also, just real quick, Joe. No one can hear you on your channel. I'm being told.
Defensive.
You're muted. Thank
you. Jesus.
Yeah. Okay, Andrew, go ahead.
Rule of law matters to some of us, so it's kind of annoying to see the president of the United States so flagrantly abuse it.
Okay, first of all, the Department of Justice works for the president. He can tell them what to do.
The Department of Justice works for the United States of America. They are officers of the United States of America. Trump is the head of the executive branch. They work for the United States. That's why it's officers of the United States, not officers of the President of the United States. These people, they're fucking fascist. Even their lawyers, they're disgusting cretins. He actually buys that the DOJ are like the personal law firm of Trump. And so no wonder they think that like Joe Biden personally went after Trump in these indictments when Trump definitely did illegal and fucky shit. They're like, oh yeah, the DOJ should operate at behest of the president like a king. I mean, that is their vision of power, is one where the republic is, beneath the boot of a dictator.
They're part of the executive branch. Second of all, capital punishment is not murder. It's state sanctioned. People get a trial. They get lawyers. They get juries.
So now you're on the technical point about whether it constitutes murder. I mean, you're just missing the forest for the trees here. They're criticizing the wisdom of that pronouncement, not whether or not it would, fit under the technical definition of murder.
And sedition was made a capital offense by Congress, not by Trump. Congress created.
Yeah, it's seditious conspiracy, and no. I mean, show me where the capital punishment is for sedition in the U.S. Code. I mean, I can tell you there's a seditious conspiracy statute, and that is 18 U.S.C. 2384, and the maximum punishment is 20 years, not death. I don't know of any other crime of sedition other than seditious conspiracy. So this dude's a fucking jackass. He doesn't know shit. I've always thought that. He's the preeminent fucking scholar on self-defense. Give me a break. This guy's a clown.
That law. Third of all violence is not bad. Why do you suggest that all the violence should be tamped down?
You're talking to someone who believes in the deadly self-defense of property. So I mean, it's a complete and total straw man that no one who's actually following this debate could think is at all what was being argued just minutes ago. I mean, this is an insane person.
Violence is not inherently bad. Violence
I agree. BLM violence is good, but Jan 6 violence is bad.
So
wait, just curious. When we say the president,
let him finish. Let him finish. Let Andrew finish, and then we can go.
Yeah, he's obviously fucking joking, dipshit.
And also, Andrew, you're really low. Can you turn?
I do hate these kinds of jokes in debates, just so you know. So it sounds like I'm going hard on Soy Pill. It just sometimes those kinds of like little snide asides do trigger me in the context of conversations. But I am not your average bear. Okay, I'm not your average debater.
Turn yourself up.
I like to stick to what we're talking about, and we agree on what we're talking about. Except when I'm in like a different mood, I'm just like taking callers. They can yap. But when it's these kind of organized things, certain things trigger me. I'm trying to get better.
Volume's just low.
When we say the president can give direction to the DOJ, is there any equivalent moment in the last 50 to 100 years of U.S. history where the president of the United States is directing?
And these guys have totally bought the bait here and have just let Steven and Soy Pill structure thank you so much for the gifted subs. Really appreciate the gifted subs. I've turned off the alerts so that it doesn't bother people, but I still do appreciate them. Just from a strategic point, the conservatives have let Soy Pill and Destiny turn this into a complete analysis of all the fucked up shit that Trump has done, and now have entered into the DOJ sphere about whether it's allowed to. And he's opened himself up for that by arguing that what Trump is doing is okay because he's allowed to do it, when that wasn't, frankly, the terms that they were bringing that up with. They were talking about it in terms of ethical responsibility. And so you can't really blame anyone but the conservatives on this issue. You kind of open the door to questioning the legality of the shit that he's doing, or the propriety from a institutional norm perspective. So just dumb mistake on dumb mistake.
His attorney general on who to prosecute, directing them on issuing indictments to political opponents.
How would you know?
I don't know. Do we have these things called historians and presidential records, and we have these people who do these things called papers and books? This thing called information and the practice of reading. How the fuck would you know? The closest we have are Nixon, fucking around with CIA and FBI and shit like that, and fucking around obviously with Richardson and the DOJ and Archibald Cox, that kind of stuff. That's what the fuck are you? How would you know? It's this kind of shit. Can you prove that conversation didn't happen and that every president hasn't had that? Can you prove it? No, I guess in the technical sense, we can just have an inference, a reasonable inference, which is if an exhaustive search of the presidential record turns up no instances of this in the last 100 years, other than in horrible cases acknowledged by the American public, then the best evidence shows that this didn't occur before Trump. Is that so crazy to say? We have to live in this world where unless I record every single fucking conversation from every single president for all of time, you're not going to buy on some probability inference here that is, you accept in every other framework. When it benefits you, you accept it.
Those are private conversations. How would
Gotcha.
you know
So the answer to your
whether or not
question was
that's
no.
occurred?
The answer to your question was no.
No,
After there's any
no,
evidence of it.
you're wrong.
Right?
No,
There is
you're
no
wrong!
evidence of this.
100% there is.
What's the evidence?
Every president? What's the evidence?
I'm about to tell you. Here's
He's
one of
about
the
to not
things
tell us, by the way. Spoiler alert.
No,
Go ahead.
no, I'll tell you right
And thank you so much, Matt, for the subs.
now. The role of the DOJ is to be manifesting the will of the executive. This is one of the things that during the confirmation
It's unitary
of,
executive theory. It's
I'm
such
in the middle-
bullshit. You
I'm
guys
in-
don't even
no, no,
believe
no,
in
no.
this shit.
They don't. They only believe it when they're in power, and as a means to accumulate power or as a means to denigrate Democrats, right? So like they'll believe it to the extent that it's beneficial for themselves. When it's like the Democrats, something bad happened to the Democrats, and so it's Biden, right? Or when something good happens under Trump, so it's Trump. But when it's something good under Biden or something, like they won't give credit for him because like some other one did it. And when it's something bad under Trump, well, Trump doesn't control Pam Bondi. That's Pam Bondi with the fucking binders. So it's all the shell game that they profess to be, adhering to a principled constitutional view, but they abandon it whenever it doesn't serve them. And you can just tell in how they're treating it. And to the extent that it's genuine, it's fucked up.
It's just your fucking mind.
You see, you don't
If
even
a
let me
Democrat
answer.
did this,
You're
it's such
afraid-
bullshit. Yeah, because this is a
Yes, but
child. You
you're
don't even
terrified-
believe in
you're
this. It's so retarded.
You're terrified of actually hearing an answer. So you have to cut me off when you see I'm making a point that actually just completely blows up everything you
Can
were
I just
saying.
short circuit and explain
No,
like
no,
half the
I
time
don't
it's
want
gonna
to
take you
short
to
circuit.
Let him talk.
Hold on,
No,
Destiny,
I don't want
please.
to short circuit because you do not know. It's not unitary executive theory.
I don't think that this is helpful at all, the fucking whinging or whatever.
It is the
I don't think it's helpful. I mean, like the soy laughing is probably worse. And but
sole purpose of the DOJ is to manage.
I mean, I'm one to talk. I get frustrated and I put up faces and I yell and stuff. So these are nitpicks.
Manifest the will. They are part of the executive branch. They are not part
Manifest
of
the
the
will
judicial
of who?
branch. Of the executive. Of the president.
They're there to enforce federal law. Their first and foremost obligation is to enforce the law. I don't know where we got it in our heads that the executive branch, though they serve oftentimes at the pleasure of the president and the president directs, they're there to enforce the law, to execute the law of the United States. That's what their obligation is to. That's why we're so outraged when like the DOJ brazenly breaks the law. Because when they do that, they're not upholding their oath, number one, and their primary allegiance, which is not to the president, which is the rule of law.
Then why do special counsels exist? Why do special counsels exist?
Special counsels exist for when there's a conflict of interest.
Why?
Okay.
Why would that matter if they're only there? Wait, how could there be a conflict of interest if they only exist there to manifest the will of the president?
You're proving
because
my point.
the president can have a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Let me think about this point from Stephen. I think they're talking past each other. So there's a level of generality one step back that good logic and Branca are talking about here, which is the president can choose to have a special counsel because he might have a conflict of interest, but it's not inconsistent with our framework of the DOJ operating to serve the executive will of Trump, right? And so a special counsel, in their view, is not inconsistent with their vision of the unitary executive because it's just enforcing the president's will that his own conflict of interest be put to the side. And I think Stephen is talking at the operating level of like a particular prosecution. If it's the case that we have special counsels to address conflicts of interest, why should it be that presidents involve themselves in areas in which there are obvious conflict of interest? So I just think that they're talking past each other. You got me? So in one sense, they're speaking from like special counsels don't contradict our theory because our theory includes the possibility of a president wanting to have conflict of interest resolved. And I think Stephen's speaking from the particularity of like what we're seeing in the Trump administration and particular prosecutions.
How can he conflict with interest with his own self, with his own Department of Justice?
Oh my God. Listen, slow down for a second.
And this is kind of like a metaphysical point it's one I agree with, which if the executive power is vested in a singular president, and if the DOJ has to, it is only an extension of the president, then the conflict of throwing off a conflict of interest maybe undermines the whole notion that the executive ought be serving as an extension, that is the DOJ, the sort of other officers of the president. And that's largely one I agree with. It's because the fundamental allegiance is to the rule of law, and the president will refrain from doing actions when there's a conflict of interest in pursuit of that higher allegiance, which is not to the president himself, but to the law. I think that's I don't know if it's coming out the best way from Stephen, but that maybe is the broader point here, which is the mere fact that there need be conflicts of interest suggests that there's a higher purpose behind the actions of both the president and the underlings that they are adhering to, other than his will. It's kind of like, it actually reminds me of some of the God debates, right? Like, if what is good is grounded in what the God says, then in what sense can God have a conflict of interests with his disciples who are just meant to exact his will? But if God is adhering to some external vision of good and just unfailingly does that, then there is some other notion of good from which he can separate himself. And I think I do agree with Stephen if that's the point being made here, which is it's to the law, it's to the rule of law and the Constitution.
Because I don't think you just understand basic civics about how our government
and now unitary executive theory has become basic civics. Kill me.
Basic civics, but you won't give me an example of anybody doing what Trump did. Go ahead.
Every single president has directed their DOJ
to
focus on one area of law or another.
Dude, this is so weaselly. Why can't you just own it? Own it. Yeah, Trump ran on draining the swamp. It means he's more involved in these cases than other presidents, but that's a good thing, and that's what you need to do in order to drain the swamp. Unfortunately, hopefully, we won't have to do it in the future, but the Democrats force our hand. That, I think, is a much more plausible statement in favor of the current DOJ, if one can make it, than it's just the same as always. It's your whole conceit, right? The whole purpose of the Trump campaign is to say we'll be different than the other guys. So it doesn't ring true to anybody. It doesn't ring true to the Trump supporters who specifically want him to take a more heavy hand in a lot of these different decisions, including, by the way, on the Epstein files, etc. So I don't know. I just find this whole thing, it's even from the perspective of Trump supporters, as lies and easy to verify, disprovable lies. Trump is not operating like other presidents are with the DOJ. Look at the fucking Twitter feeds. That's all you need to do is look at the Twitter feeds. And you should be saying that's a good thing, right? If you're a true MAGA loyalist, you say, yeah, he appointed Kash Patel to drain the swamp. Yeah, he appointed these people to drain the swamp. And he's also getting more involved because that's what's needed at this moment. But don't give us this whole, he's just the same as Biden. Well, if he's just the same as Biden with respect to that, then he's part of the swamp.
They think is particularly important towards
focus on one area of law. Excuse me, that's not what we're talking about. I mentioned that Trump specifically called for indictments for two specific individuals who were political opponents, and he named the prosecutor that he
100%.
wanted to lead the. So who else has done this? Who did this?
Which is exactly.
Did Obama do this? Did Biden do this? Give me the example. Everybody does it. Who does it? Give me an example.
No, Biden. No, Obama did it far worse. Obama did it in a far worse way.
Give me an example. Who did he target?
Obama did it far more in a nefarious way, because what he did is he actually weaponized all of his different executive agencies.
Yeah,
bullshit.
He has no evidence. He has no arguments. You have nothing for this.
Hold on, Destiny. Hold on, just real quick, just housekeeping here. Gang, if you keep interrupting, we can't understand what they're trying to say. So please
I'm trying to make a point,
let Code Logic finish. Then we're going to go to Branca, and then you can respond. I promise. But you got to let him finish, please.
Apparently, I'm saying so much nothing, you need to cut me off in the middle. The point is that he is, as the head of the executive, this is an executive agency. That is what the DOJ is. When you get Adam Schiff up there and he's questioning Pam Bondi, saying, I'm afraid you're going to be Trump's man. It's for a woman. The point is, she's supposed to be. Otherwise, she's not.
That's just not true. You're lying. You're fucking lying. That's not true.
Garland was 100% Biden's man. That's exactly.
Then why was a special prosecutor appointed to investigate Biden's documents?
Because when you have, you're only proving my point.
Dude.
That's why. That's why.
No, because the point is that if the president was the unitary controller of the attorney general, the president would tell the attorney general, don't investigate this. You see how easy that is? You see how stupid your theory is?
Destiny, think for a second. If it was already an independent agency, there could not be a conflict of interest between the DOJ and the president. It's because the DOJ is an extension of the president that you need to have some.
That's not entailed either. That's not fucking entailed. you could very much have a person who has significant amount of influence needing to recuse themselves. I mean, it would be no different with I mean, they're laughing. It's not even a good fucking point. You could have a lower level DOJ official that needs to recuse themselves, and there's nothing in that would suggest that the lower level official, thereby it's their individual will that is the ultimate grounding of what's going on. So the need to resolve conflicts of interest doesn't entail the supremacy of the underlying principle. I mean, that's a crazy point, and they're laughing like it's obvious. Like it's so simple a point. This is a bullshit argument. It doesn't even plausibly sound correct.
It's some internal affairs type of agency, which we call special counsel or special prosecutor, to
he's basically suggesting that special counsels only make sense from a grounding perspective when you accept the unitary executive theory. So stupid.
After someone who's in the president's orbit. That's why you need it.
Why wouldn't the president just tell them, don't do that investigation? Why wouldn't the president say, just don't, why wouldn't the president say, don't investigate that?
I'm almost done. Because of the fact that the DOJ is viewed as an extension of the president, when there's something around the president that might be illegal, that's why you need a third-party special prosecutor to come in. That's what you need. It's the proof that they're actually...
No, it's not. This is so silly.
...defaulting that they are part of the executive agency, part of the will of the president. In fact, that's the only way we, the people, have any power over them is through the president directing them.
Usually the president doesn't recuse themselves from individual prosecution decisions because they're not involved with individual prosecution decisions. The principal that actually recuses themselves is the attorney general in these cases. That's what the normal practice is. We don't have a robust practice of presidents recusing themselves from prosecutorial decisions because they don't involve themselves at that level of granularity. So this whole thing is fucking stupid. It is conceding that, well, because the attorney general recuses themselves, it's somehow entailed that the president is the unitary executive. Preposterous.
That's how we actually have representation in who's being prosecuted. Now, go ahead with your question, please.
Sure. So two things. So just real quick. So one, there's a difference between having a...
And we're done talking about the National Guard. I know I'm the only one in the audience that gives a shit about that.
...legal agenda and directing somebody to prosecute particular political opponents. You acknowledge that, right?
Why? No. Why? Why would that be? Why?
There's no distinction there. These people, oh my God.
That's different.
How do you sit there with a straight face? Pretending that there's no difference. When for years we were arguing about how involved Biden was in the decision of the Merrick Garland prosecution. Presumably because you thought and acknowledged that there was a difference in Biden himself personally involving himself in the, I'm sorry, did I say Garland? I meant the Jack Smith indictments. Presumably you thought that. Presumably you thought that it would be wrong if, for example, Biden pressured the IRS whistleblowers in a particular direction or in another particular direction, because you recognize this difference. It's not plausibly, even facially realistic that these people couldn't appreciate and understand that distinction.
I'm sorry, hold on, let me just restate that. I'm not going to say it. If you want to make yourself sound that stupid, that's fine. You do not recognize a difference or a distinction between a president saying, I would like to focus more on this kind of crime, versus the president saying, these two opponents of mine, political opponents from 2 administrations ago, I want you to prosecute them. If you say there's no distinction...
For prosecution?
Oh my, no, that's not what's being asked, dipshit. Oh, is this guy about to leave? 20 minutes in. I thought it was 20 minutes or something.
You wouldn't know before until you do the investigation. Isn't that kind of part of what the DOJ does? Number one. Number two.
No, answer the question. Is there a distinction in your mind between policy level decisions at the, what things to focus on, how to, structure yourselves versus individual enforcement decisions? That was the question that was asked.
Number two.
The DOJ is not an investigative agency.
It absolutely is partly investigatory. It absolutely is. DOJ prosecutors are also with the FBI in running investigations. Components of the DOJ do investigations. They do civil investigations. They do antitrust investigations. What the fuck are you talking about? Absolutely, the DOJ is involved in investigations. They run investigations. There's a whole part of litigation. There's a whole field of litigation called investigations. And oftentimes, the DOJ are the main people. This guy he must have no white collar criminal defense experience whatsoever for him to think that. Has he ever done like an FCPA investigation or some kind of white collar crime investigation, something like that? When you're interfacing with DOJ and they're running an investigation and they're coming to conclusions, holy shit. Does he really think the DOJ does not investigate? Are you crazy? What was Robert Mueller? This is insane.
But that's
number two.
No,
the
DOJ is not an
You're not making a point.
investigative agency.
It sure is. It's also other things, but it sure is an investigatory agency. It sure absolutely is.
The DOJ is
really?
not.
What does the FBI do? How does the DOJ?
And yes, the FBI is a component of the DOJ as well, but it's not just the FBI. It's main DOJ. They also do investigations, and other components of, U.S. attorneys' offices run investigations. Bizarre, insane. How can you say? I'm.
They get evidence for an indictment.
It's a different agency.
The FBI is a component of the DOJ. It answers to the Attorney General. But you're also wrong. You're also wrong. The attorneys that you usually think are like line prosecutors, they also run investigations. They will also do the subpoenas. They will help clear different investigative methods. If you need to get a FISA warrant or something, you're going to consult with the DOJ. These are run in tandem. And oftentimes the people leading the show are the DOJ lawyers and prosecutors. This is so crazy.
It's under the DOJ. What do you? It's literally a subsidiary.
I mean, they don't even believe this is so insane.
You're the DOJ.
This is like a huge crash out. They're trying to do a technicality that doesn't matter. And when that is just like, when you say it out loud, it discredits itself. They're dying on the hill of a distinction that is so irrelevant. Is it an investigatory? This is insane.
What are you talking about? Okay, stop.
Federal Bureau of...
Okay, the question was, if this is so ordinary, if this is so commonplace, then just show me one other time it's happened. It should be really easy. If presidents do this all the time, what other president has directed his attorney general? Give me one example. Don't just say it happens all the time. Give me an example.
Would you like
War
me
on
to
drugs.
answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
War on drugs.
War on drugs. That might be like the worst response you could give. That literally might be the worst thing you could say, because it just solidifies that you have no appreciation of a distinction that you clearly do, and no one believes you don't. This is a insane L.
Hold on, just real quick.
Are we just saying random words together now?
Stop. Branca, do you have an answer?
Branca? These people misspeak.
Today's question.
It's irrelevant whether it's ordinary,
Thank you.
if it's within the president's authority. And
It's irrelevant whether it's ordinary. So you're disagreeing with Joe? You're saying it doesn't matter. So if he can do it, I will not criticize it. If he has the power to do, so you're not going to criticize Biden for his immigration policy, such as it was, because he had the power to do it, right? Is that what you're suggesting to us, Branca? These guys have one IQ each that they're sharing, and a worm connects their respective consciousness.
And it is. He's allowed to do unordinary things.
Oh, God, crash out. These are like 0 out of 10s for this.
Just say that. It's extraordinary. It's never happened. Yeah, that's great. Just open with that next time instead of saying everybody does it. Not everybody does it. Trump is the most egregious.
Look at Joe. Joe feels so hurt. Why didn't you back me up?
Anything.
Abuser of the
because
DOJ.
You won't stop talking.
Oh, shit. He's pissed.
The problem is you guys keep describing this as vaguely as possible. It's, hey, this is the president's purview to do this thing and direct these departments. And we're saying, hey, when has the president ever called for the killing of people within his government in this certain way? Not, hey, he's going and saying...
And optically, this is a horrible look, because they're just talking about Trump garbage and how Trump is a horrible person instead of, did Trump kill this National Guards person? This is not going the way you want.
Maybe we could kill American citizens if it, helps the war on drugs, or hey, we need to kill people at the border.
American
specifically calling for. Yeah, I know that Obama did.
Oh, now you open that can of worms. So now you're opening yourself up to the comparison. Now you're going to have to defend Hegseth, I'm guessing.
He asked his DOJ and his Office of Legal Counsel. He had the authority to do it. He didn't direct them. That's the difference between Obama and Trump.
Why does his DOJ give him authority?
No, he's not directing the DOJ on a prosecution. He is directing an airstrike for sure. And there's plenty of precedent for that. And there's also plenty of precedent for a president requesting a legal opinion from the OLC. These guys are jokers. What there's not precedent for is what they just talked about, which is directing the domestic prosecution of individuals, especially including political rivals. That's what is not precedented. But it is precedented to request legal opinions from the OLC. It is precedented for presidents to order strikes. What's not precedented, I think, is the specific strikes at issue. That's a different issue. That's a different case, I guess. But the narco terrorists. That's by the way, if you hear someone say that, that's like a sign that they probably have worms for brains. Not that there couldn't be a conception as narco terrorists, but in this specific climate, they're just repeating a talking point from Trumpy.
Literally,
how does his DOJ give authority? That's
he
like
went to them for the legal
secretary.
memo. What do you mean? The whole Eric Holder memo literally details this. He went to them to find out if he felt he had the authority to even act this way.
This, I think, is a weak point from Stephen. They often relies on, which is like the fact that he sought a legal opinion that we should like. I mean, maybe that gets into like good faith if we think that they're like it just may be some evidence that they're acting in good faith of justification. But I'm sure that Trump is like getting some bullshit opinion written by his cronies about some bullshit, right? That's not the big difference. The big difference is like the objective differences in the nature of the strike, in that they were cognizant of a purpose that is to engage in warfare according to the rules of war. And that's what they actually did. Even if they get things wrong. I don't, by the way, separate to that, I don't think that Obama should be immunized for that conduct, but I think he should be able to raise a defense of justification. And what we're talking about with the specific drone strikes on drug traffickers, that just in no way constitutes acts of warfare against the United States. As much as you try to, construe language one way or the other, it's not what the framers meant when they were talking about war, the power of war, declaring war, invasions, any of that. That's not what they were talking about in the slightest. So that's the difference is the stated aim, right? Like the stated aim is to go after drug traffickers. Now they can call it whatever they want, but they're not engaged in a war against the United States. They're not actually engaged in a war against the United States. I think it's gravy that he sought a legal opinion, but to me, it's like, it's not super strong evidence. The seeking of an opinion itself, who the fuck cares? It's what you were trying to do and what did you do? And what were the facts that were known to you at the time? Do we have a reason to think that it was sham? That's what I think matters, not the mere seeking of an opinion. Because if that happens, Trump will hire whoever he needs to get whatever opinion he needs.
There's a difference between him and Trump firing every attorney general that he doesn't agree with.
The president is not subordinate to the Department of Justice.
The president is subordinate to the Constitution of the United States, and he's supposed to act in a way that comports with what the law is.
So now everyone is just fucking soying out and doing their little outbursts. Listen, I'm not above that.
So the president might consult his Department of Justice instead of like Donald
I love this condescending nod, Joe, dude. Come on, bro.
Trump, who only confers with his personal attorneys, and instead of breaking every law and hoping to win in court, Obama tried to follow the law
I don't know what Wick is. Is Wick loving this or is he hating this?
ahead of time, which is what you're supposed to do. The law is there to check your behavior before you do. It's not there as a consequence for you to intentionally break it over and over again.
Okay, we gotta let the other side respond without interruption, for a little bit. Okay, just go ahead, Bron.
I mean, he's really letting Stephen get away with quite a bit of interruption. But you just got to roll with it if you're the other side. Just to interrupt them back. And don't be like, sorry, I'm talking, or like nod and do the condescending shit. Just interrupt. Just get right in there.
Branca, please, you can respond. I'll try to make sure you aren't interrupted. Go ahead.
If it's okay for Obama to actually kill American citizens, why would it be inappropriate for Trump to advocate killing American citizens?
This is like the stupidest thing I've maybe ever heard all day. And he said a bunch of whoppers. He's the preeminent fucking self-defense guy. Surely the preeminent self-defense scholar in all of America would understand and appreciate the difference. Like there could be a justified self-defense shooting, right? Where, for example, right? I'm sure these people are all supporters of Kyle Rittenhouse and his self-defense rights. Surely the preeminent scholar on self-defense would say, yeah, it was okay for Kyle Rittenhouse to use self-defense in that context, but it's not okay to openly call for the death of someone else for no reason, right? Just because one is more violence against someone else. Didn't he start this, by the way, with saying that violence is sometimes good? Why would you say this ridiculous thing? Well, if Obama killed a U.S. citizen in any context, therefore Trump should be able to advocate the death of any U.S. citizen in any context too. Obviously, to the extent that people support Obama's killing of a U.S. citizen, it's not separate from the context, it's including the context. It's, considering the reasons why he did it and not agnostic to those reasons. The preeminent scholar of self-defense wouldn't see that it's not a greater includes the lesser argument here, in that if you support Obama drone striking an American citizen in the context in which he did, you're necessarily supposed to support anyone advocating for any violence against any U.S. citizen that's of a lesser degree to murder or which has additional procedural protections. That doesn't follow. I think everything he said, other than like his initial focus, which didn't last very long, on the actual prompt, has been horrible. I mean, this guy looks like a clown. Optically, he looks like a beta soy cuck, and what he's saying makes no sense and is easily debunkable.
Without actually doing it.
Because Obama was exercising his powers as the head of the military.
Just get to it. I think you should have. This comes up enough that you should be confident.
As the commander-in-chief. As the commander-in-chief, number one, and number two, it was in a theater of war where we already had.
There you go. That's what you need.
Pre-existing authorization for the use of military force in order for.
There was no war against Al Qaeda. There was no war against Al Qaeda. Help me out here. I'm pretty sure we had a war against Al Qaeda. I might have missed that. There was no war? Imagine saying that. What?
We already have a broad AUMF that has been not challenged.
And that is also true. That this was Al-Awlaki. He was an Al Qaeda guy. Yes, he was a U.S. citizen.
By any prior president to operate in the Middle East. Now, unless I'm not aware of this, were any of the people that Donald Trump said should be tried for seditious conspiracy or whatever, were any of these people part of fucking Al Qaeda or some terrorist outfit that I'm just not aware of that Trump didn't publicize information about?
They don't need to be. They can be anybody. I mean, look at the dangerousness of this is what we were warning about with the Trump versus United States. Their invitation to absurdity is Trump can designate anyone he wants as a terrorist, foreign terrorist organization, designated terrorist organization, even designated domestic Antifa elements as foreign terrorist organizations, and we just have to accept it. It doesn't matter whether or not they're actually engaged in a war against the United States or in warfare against the United States. Absurdity. And this is actually a growing consensus view in MAGA, that they do think that anyone that they label as terrorists are fit to be fucking drone striked. And I don't know why it stops at the border. I made this point the other day. I'm not sure why, if we consider drug trafficking to be warfare, like warfare can happen domestically. And, Lincoln, when he was fighting people who were engaged in warfare against the United States, he ordered them killed without trials, right? That's part of war. So I don't know where the authority, why it would stop at the border. If you truly believe these drug traffickers are engaged in a war against the United States, then you should be accepting of the power to operate the drones domestically. My guess is Branca and good logic. Actually, I don't know. You think they'll support it? If Trump did it? If Trump drone strike domestically, is that a drug trafficker domestically? You think that they would say anything? Maybe I'm so naive that I'm thinking that's a line that they won't cross. Am I naive? No, I think they'd cross it. I think that they would make excuses. I think if they, drone strike their mother, and they might make excuses. Maybe. Am I crazy?
Sedition doesn't require that.
Sedition doesn't require that?
Trump didn't publicize information about?
Sedition doesn't require
some terrorist outfit that I'm just not aware of that Trump didn't publicize information about?
Sedition doesn't require that.
I don't even know if he's following the conversation. Who was talking about sedition?
Oh, do we have any evidence of them committing sedition?
Yes, we have a video of them committing sedition.
Sedition, as defined how?
Yes.
Oh, okay, wait. So just to be clear. Okay, so Donald Trump retweeting things saying that these people should be tried and executed. That in and of itself is totally fine. But a bunch of people going on video saying you shouldn't follow unlawful orders, which is literally part of the military code. That's seditious behavior?
Yes, it's
You look crazy. What's the sedition?
sedition in the broader political context, sure.
In the broader political context, that means not at all.
It's
Anyway,
literally
a jury-
not. It's
a jury
absolutely
would
not.
decide.
So you
A jury would decide. I mean, this is such a nothing statement. A jury would decide any fact that was before the jury. A jury could decide whether you're gay, Branca. I mean, like, I don't know, where do we go with this? That doesn't make it that, like, you have to make an argument that isn't just, they could say that. I got a little annoyed of it with even Kafka earlier, where he was like, well, couldn't Congress impeach over anything? I guess technically, but like, we're asking you your standard as you would apply it.
completely destroyed on that. You've been mogged completely out of existence.
Yeah, absolutely destroyed.
What a stupid, how could you possibly think that these people committed seditious conspiracy, but Donald Trump, who's literally retweeting.
They committed seditious conspiracy. So I'm going to read to you, this is seditious conspiracy statute. If two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of the United States by force, or to levy war is a synonym for commit treason by levying war, which is a synonym for insurrection. So just, levy war is a form of treason and it's insurrection. Or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, they shall be fined or imprisoned. So there's no conspiring to oppose a law of the United States by force at all, or using force. Force is required in this seditious conspiracy, even if it were not trivially protected by the First Amendment, what we're talking about. It just doesn't meet out the statutory definition of seditious conspiracy, which, as I know, is the only. But he said sedition in the broader political context, which means, not really actually sedition. It just means whatever I want to call sedition, which, sometimes you can just use words like that. Like, I'll say, you guys are fucking traitors. And if someone pushes me, I'll be, oh, okay, what I mean to say is, like, you are betraying the country. I don't mean the legal definition of treason. Although for some people I do think that Trump committed treason by engaging in insurrection. That's a form of treason. I do think he's a literal traitor. And that applies also to many of the people who he fucking pardoned. But these guys look ridiculous. They look insane. So it's totally fine in your mind for Trump to say everything he said about killing these people, and it's not fine, and they committed sedition for saying follow the law. And he's like, yep. These guys look like wackos, whack jobs.
People say they should be. So
hold on. Let them make the argument.
Anytime I say somebody should be killed, I should just say first, oh, he should be tried for a crime and killed first.
Oh my God.
We're safe.
Let me. Hold on. Stop, please. I want to hear the argument. So the argument about the sedition. Why is it sedition? Why is them going on to making an ad saying you should disobey unlawful orders? How is that sedition? Can you make the argument?
That would not be seditious.
Oh, but you just said what was the sedition?
It's seditious. It's not just that. It's the
wait. So you're saying that's not sedition. It's not just that. What is
context? It's the context in which they're saying that, and it's simultaneously they're saying, by the way, everything Trump's doing is unlawful. They're saying
So how does that make things sedition? I take that view. Yes, I take the view that you don't have an obligation to follow illegal orders. And it's also my view that Trump and Hegseth are issuing illegal orders. How is that any more sedition? Why don't you read out what you take sedition to be? These guys are dipshits, 1 IQ.
They say that in that video at all?
They said that in that video?
It doesn't have to
But also if they did, even if they did, I'm allowed to think that what the military is doing in these strikes is illegal and that they're being given illegal orders. And I also think, which is an indisputable fact, that they have a right not to follow illegal orders. None of that is sedition. Me stating that isn't sedition. You haven't provided a definition by which it would be covered by sedition. And even if the Congress attempted to make that illegal, the First Amendment, thankfully, is here to protect against such intrusions in our daily free speech.
We understand you're under intense pressure.
Okay, so when these people put it out, you have to read between the lines and imply what they're saying. Yep. But when Trump comes out and say, "Kill these members of my government,"
liberals need to act moral and above board on everything. But Donald Trump is only constrained by the outer perimeter of our delusional interpretation of law. Amazing.
No. When they go out there, and weeks earlier, Slotkin is going out there saying he's issuing illegal orders, and then she comes out here.
He is.
Okay. So you're only making.
Did she say every single thing he does is legal?
Soy pill. What you're doing is you're.
He is acting like he's in control of this conversation, and that he got soy pill in a trap because he admitted, and this is what they need. What we're saying is you haven't even made out your case that when they said X, Y, or Z, they were intending him not to follow a specific order or a set of orders. They could have the opinion that those orders are illegal and also not encourage them not to follow them. They just say, tell them. So they're basically calling out lack of evidence for the specific intent that they're implying of the individuals. But I would argue, even if they did have the intent that, hey, guys, stop doing these bombs, I think that's protected speech whatsoever. And, importantly, not covered under any definition of sedition I've ever heard of.
Arguing against yourself.
Just real quick, Andrew, your mic keeps getting lower as you go. I don't know if you're turning it down, but it was good for a minute, and then it's gone lower.
Soy pill, you're actually arguing against yourself, because when you have these senators and these congressmen and women who go out there and say he's issuing illegal orders, and then they say if an illegal order is issued, you're honor bound on the Constitution to disobey it. The only possible purpose for making that is to basically plant the seed in the minds of military that every time they have an order,
plant the seed that they ought not follow illegal orders, and it's possible that there's a risk such orders would come down, because there is, and because it's true, and because that's all correct.
They should sit there and try calculate, is this constitutional? Do I think it's constitutional? When you try to actually put this,
they always have. I hate this fucking idea that, why should we burden our troops with having to be bound by the thing they're swearing an oath to protect? What? Yeah. Sorry if that's problematic, but we can't have it any other way. Yes, they swore an oath to protect a constitution, and that might entail them needing to know about what is acceptable under the Constitution and under the laws made pursuant to the Constitution. We act as though, don't burden these military people with following the law and respecting the rules of war and making sure that they're not following illegal. What, do we not want them to think about the Constitution? Now, in general, the way troops are disciplined, they're going to assume that most orders are lawful orders, and that's also the presumption in the UCMJ. But that doesn't mean that they should not be thinking about the Constitution. Always be thinking about your oath. Always. I don't understand where this went away, where we're like, now we need to provide all law enforcement, all military with risk-free and responsibility-free occupations. That's not the case. Part of the reason we value and honor people who are committed to public service and to the military and veterans is because they are tasked with upholding a higher allegiance. That allegiance being the Constitution and the defense of our country. That is their allegiance. And we honor them not because they don't have to listen to that and they don't have that responsibility, but because they do have that responsibility. Otherwise, we're just honoring people with guns for no reason. We're honoring them because they're putting their lives on the line, and they have the awesome responsibility of maintaining and protecting our country and our Constitution. It's crazy that we've totally inverted this, and now it's like we need to make our troops like fucking Call of Duty NPCs that just don't, they follow the script and don't have any kind of independent agency to consider the thing that they're sworn to uphold. That is just crazy.
Into a practical sense, rather than applying it to an individual scenario.
Were both those statements true? Were both the statements true?
Statements were true.
Was Trump issuing illegal orders?
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
So when it was reported to murder the people in the Venezuelan boats, even when they blew the boats up, that's not an illegal order?
It's not murder. It is murder. It's murder.
Not murder.
What is it then? For a country that we're not at war with, what would you consider that?
It's a lawful killing.
Wait. The lawful killing. A lawful killing.
How is it a lawful killing? What is the law? Self-defense lawyer, you said? What is the... Sorry, I'm my God.
Well, soy pill, please. Because Flawed Logic just said there is no other possible explanation other...
Which name did I get now?
Flawed Logic? What was it?
You called him Chud Logic. He's...
Chud Logic?
Good logic. I promise you. It's not God Logic.
Anyway,
it's not Chud Logic.
The
it's
only explanation for...
Oh, he's doing these little memes. You know what? I say nothing. Soy pill... I think you're doing decent on the other stuff. I don't like them. I don't know. It just distracts, and we get into this little. Wick gets distracted by them. Good Logic gets distracted. You have them on the ropes. Take it. Take the shot. Metaphor.
Saying this is to plant the seed of doubt and make them question every order. Why is it in the military training to say you shouldn't obey illegal orders? Is it to make every single military person like question every single order and like, oh, we want to have a military that's insubordinate? Or is it because you aren't allowed to follow illegal orders and you
it's
can't
the very
just use
same people? That's a good question.
Go ahead.
It's a fair question, Soy Pill. And I'll tell you, it's the very same people and those in their camp who are continually saying there's one illegal order after another where they've continually been proven wrong. They've basically been claiming
this isn't
this
answering
is
my
illegal,
question
that's
at all.
illegal.
You just said
I will answer your question.
No,
So
you're
when she's
completely
going out
this
there
isn't my
and
question
saying,
at all.
No, because in the military, when they're being trained, they're not being trained. Hey, you're going to be getting a whole bunch of illegal orders. So make sure that you only follow constitutional orders. They don't get that in their training. They don't get that warm up. When you're getting as a follow up, as a follow through to, there's all sorts of unconstitutional orders. And hey, by the way, military, when you get a constitutional order, you better make sure you don't follow it. And there's also even a veiled threat in there. The veiled threat is that when we come back into power, if we decide to determine those are unconstitutional, we're going to prosecute you, military.
You know what? Good. You know what? It's about time someone in the executive branch, including, by the way, the generals who are ordering this thing or overseeing it, got the fear of God in them about whether they're following the fucking law. Someone needs to actually be fearful of it. That's called deterrence. And everyone is supposed to be deterred in their criminal conduct. It's only in this bizarro world that Roberts has created that, like, it's not good to have the incentive to avoid criminal punishment. Fuck yeah, if Democrats take power, I want oversight of everyone involved in the decision to do these illegal, murderous strikes. Absolutely I do. And if that falls on a single or two or three rank and file troops, so be it. That's what the law demands. Did we not, well, our history in dealing with American atrocities abroad is less than stellar, to put it mildly. If you look at what happened with Milei and everything, all the different scandals. But I have no problem whatsoever in saying, hey, maybe the executive branch ought to be more concerned about whether they're violating the criminal statutes that the people enacted in the people's house, in our Congress. That actually is a good incentive to follow the law. And this feeling of fear that you might feel, like, you guys feel fearful, don't you, that you're filing your taxes correctly? Oh, did you run a red light? Guess what? No man is above the law. That's our basic precept. Just because you're a fucking public servant, police officer, or yes, even a member of our armed services, you get the respect because you're actually held to a higher standard, a higher calling, a higher standard. So yeah, you should be feeling this pulse not to get indicted or charged because you might get in trouble when you do something criminal. But in good logic's mind, that's crazy. That if you had that basic precept of people having to adhere to the law, you couldn't run a military that way. You couldn't actually have an armed forces that way. I think that our armed forces can operate that way in honor of the law that they're sworn to uphold, in the Constitution they're sworn to uphold. I think that it's actually within the capability of our military to operate efficiently and also in the operation of the law. I think that that's actually important. That's actually needed. I actually would want that to be required. And I wouldn't want to live in a society in which our military weren't needing to uphold that. That's just insane. I don't want to live in a military dictatorship where they don't have to uphold the basic precepts of the law. Now, does every grunt, is that going to like cause them all to go crazy? I don't think it will. I think that we've been operating in that fashion. And frankly, if anything, I think that the tendency has been too mild in terms of punishing wrongdoing sometimes, including at the highest level. They got Petraeus on classified information. They'll go after that. But certainly, if they go after that, why can't they? Why shouldn't they enforce laws against murder and war crimes and shit like that? If we're going to go after the classified documents of Petraeus, seems like maybe we should do an investigation. I didn't see them crying when Petraeus was charged because the rule of law obviously applies to them. And they're mandated to uphold it.
members for following these orders, and you're not going to be able to say, and we've even heard Schumer go out there, and we've heard others say that, hey, you're not going to be able to say we were following orders. Remember the Nuremberg trials? That's what the left has been saying right now. So in this entire context, the only reason to do it is to weaken the military and have our military members basically question every single order rather than relying on the default that our military has had for like 250 years. That hey, when I get an order, it's constitutional.
We gotta
so
let
you keep saying
respond.
only reason. Could it be possible? Is there not a world that exists in which Donald Trump has done something illegal and people want the people not to follow that order? Is that possible?
That is.
They can't name one.
Okay. Well, I just named one.
The murder of the Venezuelan people after the boats, killing people after the boats already been destroyed. Not only that's a war crime and it's illegal in the United States. You can't do that.
Yes, you can.
No.
Source?
You can't.
Great arguments. Yes, you can. No, you can't.
No, wait.
Okay,
So
hold on. Let's pause here.
To the Rome statue?
This guy is such a baby fuck. I can already tell. He's like so triggered.
Dude, I know we're not party to the ICC. I can appeal to international customary humanitarian law. You're not allowed to kill people that are no longer enemy combatants. Like what for military law, you're not allowed to kill people that have already surrendered. White flag.
So he has like no limits. Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Laws and all these things are part of our military code of conduct. So what are you citing? What do you think that you're allowed to kill people who aren't able to participate in combat anymore? What are you citing to? What do you think? What?
They weren't surrendered.
They were shipwrecked.
How do you even know? They were shooting at them from fucking drones.
Okay, just real quick.
They weren't surrendered.
Just real quick before we go on, just to add some context to this. Hold on, stop, please. In the DoD's Law of War Manual, and this was updated in July 2023, and I'm gonna just read from this directly. This can give some context to the audience. Under Section 5.
So now Wick wants to get involved in some of this. So now it's a 3-on-2. That'd be a 3-on-1. That's how they view that. Like the conservatives. Oh, you're outnumbered. This is a benefit, guys. If you're on one of these panels and you don't think it's a benefit to be outnumbered, then you're the weakest link. Okay? Then you're a soy piece of shit. I love to be outnumbered because it's good optics and it's also more time talking. So you should like it.
Point 9, persons placed hors de combat. Persons, including combatants, placed hors de combat may not be made the object of attack. Persons placed hors de combat include the following categories of persons, provided they abstain from any hostile act and do not attempt to escape. 1. Persons in the power of an adverse party. 2. Persons not yet in custody who have surrendered. 3. Persons who have been rendered unconscious or otherwise incapacitated by wounds, sickness, or shipwreck. And 4. Persons parachuting from aircraft in distress. So,
shit.
if the Washington
Sounds like it's directly on point there, Branca.
Post report is correct, Andrew, could you give us the legal reasoning that, in your opinion, argument, why those shipwrecked
Is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do it?
Guys were a legal target.
A narco
They
guys?
weren't shipwrecked. They were blown up.
I actually might need to stop. I don't know if I'll make the walkout. He did not just say that.
Were a legal target.
Well, they weren't shipwrecked. They were blown up.
What do you think shipwrecked means?
There's no way.
Shipwrecked means a ship wrecks on a reef, on a shore.
That's not.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
What it means. It means your ship has been rendered incapacitated. It could have been because it got wrecked, or could have been it got blown up. The reality is that the people on the ship, even if they were enemy combatants, of which we have no proof of, by the way, even if they were, as soon as their ship has been rendered unable to perform any combat functions, and the people in the water, they have obtained.
Say that?
Say what? Well, you're a lawyer. I'm curious. No. Inform us. You're a lawyer. When there are words that appear legally and there are statutes, how would you figure out what it actually means? What would you do? What would you look up?
Are you allowed to shoot enemy soldiers who are running away?
Yes.
Okay. So why is this any different?
Because they're shipwrecked.
Because the law recognizes it as such?
They're in water. They're shipwrecked.
What about soldiers who are running away? They're not attacking
the
you
law
at the
doesn't
moment.
specify it as such.
Because soldiers that are running away are still considered part of combat.
They're not
Fleeing
incapacitated.
is a military operation.
Right. Why would these people in the boats get the benefit of the law of warfare where they're not?
Because they're
engaged
incapacitated.
in any recognized military force or
Because
warfare.
they're considered
Because when
incapacitated.
you're not a fucking savage, that's how you conduct yourself as a first world country, especially as a country that says that we
Oh
don't
my
exist under the Rome Statute
God.
because we're not signatories to the ICC. We have our own military courts that are supposed to hold
Yeah,
our own behavior
domestic
accountable.
American
that's why
law.
stuff like Abu Ghraib and that's why stuff like Gitmo is not always on the up and up, and some of it we went after. So the answer is there is international customary humanitarian law. We're all
now it's interesting. He's feeling the heat a little bit here because he's saying some dumb shit. But now he's not arguing what the law says. You'll notice that little shift. He doesn't say the law actually provides for this. And you'll notice Wick said, provide your legal analysis. But Branca now says, why should we treat the shipwreck differently than fleeing enemies? So now, when it's convenient for him, he doesn't appeal to the mere, except in that kind of weak fashion that even Joe laughed at, that shipwreck meant only shipwreck as a consequence of, I guess, non-combat or non-military, just when you happen upon enemies who happen to be shipwrecked. I'm sure that's what was intended. That's sarcastic. But you'll notice then he's like, well, why should it be the way? Why should the so now we go to the normative instead of the legal. And so I'll notice that little more weaselly tactics. And he's feeling that you can see him anxious as fuck, rubbing his hands.
Let's agree that there are certain rules. You can't torture people. You can't rape people. You can't capture people.
Oh,
well, I'm informing you.
What's
Since you apparently
wrong
don't know
with
anything
you?
about international
You're not
law.
answering the
Murdering
question.
people.
Just let me know when you're done.
What the question specifically is you can't murder people that are just swing.
For people to have the protection of the law of war, they have to qualify for the protection of the law of war. These are regular combatants engaged.
They're regular combatants. Okay, I don't even agree with that. But if they are, then aren't you saying that they're subject to the rules of war? Is this guy like we're all operating in this entire little diatribe on the assumption that the rules of war apply. That's why they're applying the rules of war. Well, if they're not subject to the rules of war, then I guess it's murder. I guess it's treason then. Like if we're not talking about the rules of war, under what authority are we killing these people?
Engaged in chemical warfare against the United States.
Chemical warfare. Chemical warfare.
Qualify for the law of war.
Number one, even if what you just said was true, they do qualify.
So you're saying if they use, where is the citation to that? Where the fuck? So according to Branca, we have to give less rule. He's just making this up. But also, we treat Al Qaeda nicer than we treat the narco terrorists. That's his own fucking logic, right?
You have no evidence of any of those claims. An enemy combatant that is shipwrecked qualifies.
And then the nervous laughter. This is abysmal. These guys deserve 0 out of 10s.
For prisoner of war status. Where what?
They're not in uniform.
They're not in uniform. He doesn't know anything. Oh no. Well, here's another thought here, Branca. Maybe if they're not in uniform, if they're not part of a military and they're not doing warlike things, maybe they're not actually engaged in a war. Or maybe that's the inference there. But in any event, so you think that irregulars or people who operate as militants, that you don't have any obligation to them as far as any course of conduct? That you might as well, by this logic, I guess you could just apprehend them and shoot them in the head when you've captured them. Take it to its logical extent. This guy, he called himself the preeminent scholar on self-defense in America. I think he's the preeminent scholar having his head totally and 100% up his own ass because he doesn't know jack shit.
They don't have to be in uniform.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I know it hurts.
Okay.
Yeah,
Andrew, please finish your point.
Trump just commits war crimes.
What?
That's what you're going to say. I know
You guys, gang, I love the energy. I love the passion. It's really great content. But we gotta let Andrew finish his point, please. Andrew, go ahead.
Is gonna.
No, I'll let Destiny go. I just do want to say, however, that I guess I misunderstood what the nature of the format would be here. I'm on.
Oh my! He's gonna bow out. A bow out.
Likely to stay for 2 hours to get yelled at by Destiny. That's.
Oh wow. So you're the biggest cuck there is.
Not a good use of my time. So if we could maybe have questions and answers and people have an opportunity.
Are you going to cry, dude?
To exchange views and positions. We don't have to agree, but we can inform the audience that way. Getting yelled at by Destiny for 2 hours isn't informing anybody.
It's informing me how much of a stupid piece of shit you are, and that you're willing to defend, like, basically massacres on anyone who's not uniformed, or that you're willing to ignore the law when it suits your own guy, and that you actually have no idea what you're talking about. It's pretty informative, but I kind of suspected that.
I'll be nicer.
I guess
we probably get more. We'll probably get further if you actually let people like respond. And
I hate this soy shit. Just enough with the meta. Just talk
rather than just trying to cut them down before they finish. You actually just let them respond.
It would be nice if they were responsive to my questions. That'd be nice. We probably got. We got it.
No, that's gonna piss them off.
And instead of mischaracterizing as not being responsive, I'll tell you. You tell me how it fails to respond, and I'll tell you how it is. And Andrew could do the same.
Let's bring it back. What was the question for the debate?
Yeah, let's.
Hey, Branca, you should have realized that 30 minutes ago that you let yourself be pushed around because you couldn't just stand tall in the proposition. So for the first time, you should have taken the stand early and forced some concession. Wait a second. Are you guys conceding the proposition of the debate? Because that's what I'm here to discuss. And then you might have had like a leg to stand on. A little late for that, Chief.
That's what I'm trying to do, please. I'm trying to rein it back in, right? We're going to be talking about the shooting of the National Guard members, right?
Are we going to be talking about that?
Who bears responsibility and to what extent they bear responsibility, and if Trump does so. So let's kind of reset, get it back on track.
All right.
Okay.
I believe Wick.
I have a question because they really want to answer questions.
Go ahead. Ask your question. Yeah. I better be on track or else go ahead.
Do you think Donald Trump has ever toned down rhetoric, or has he only ever made it worse in the last year?
Oh, God, what a question.
He's allowed to engage in rhetoric. He's a politician. He has no
That's
obligation.
Not what I asked. I didn't. He's allowed
to.
If he has. Wait, I asked if he has. I thought you were here to answer my questions, not say whether or not it was okay what Trump did.
All right. I get to speak what I'd like.
He's like a fucking wind-up toy. You ask him a question, he's like, he technically has the right to say words and utterances, and he can't stop him from saying words.
To say, is that okay? You can
tell
the audience that
not okay.
let him give his answer, and if it's not responsive to your question, you can remind him of that after he's given his answer. Go ahead.
I don't work for you, Soy Pill. I don't have to answer questions to your satisfaction.
Yeah, well, you also have a goldfish memory.
Sorry.
Hold on. Stop. Okay, I'm gonna have to start muting people. Okay, I hate to do this.
I'm gonna bow out if this is. I'm not spending.
A bow out. A bow. He actually said a bow out from True Grit.
2 hours of my night like this. This is pointless.
You just answer my question.
Finish your statement.
So it was actually Soy Pill's question that sent him over the edge, maybe?
Andrew, go ahead, please.
State your question, Soy Pill, and I will provide the answer I believe is appropriate for me. Go ahead.
Okay. Has Donald Trump ever turned down the rhetoric, or has he only ever inflated it and made it worse?
I think especially in the last year. Okay. The question's irrelevant because Donald Trump has no obligation to turn down the rhetoric.
Okay, cool.
He's
so you're not going to answer my question. So you can stop talking now. You can bow out now.
No, we can. No.
Oh, no. So it was actually Soy Pill.
No, we can't. I'll muted him. Okay.
A bow out.
I muted, I guess.
Oh, remember at the start I said this is what all Republicans do. Is Trump is just given the outer.
Okay. We have the thing. All right. Wait. Immediate release from to Caroline Leavitt from Trump's lawyer, Trump's doctor. As part of President Donald J. Trump's comprehensive executive physical advanced imaging was performed because men in his age group benefit from a thorough evaluation of cardiovascular and abdominal health. The purpose of this imaging is preventative to identify issues early, confirm overall health, and ensure he maintains long-term vitality and function. His cardiovascular imaging is perfectly normal. There is no evidence of arterial narrowing, impairing blood flow, or abnormalities in the heart or major vessels. The heart chambers are normal in size. The vessel walls appear smooth and healthy, and there are no signs of inflammation or clotting. Overall, his cardiovascular system shows excellent health. His abdominal imaging is also perfectly normal. All major organs appear very healthy and well perfused. Everything evaluated is functioning within normal limits with no acute or chronic concerns. The level of detailed assessment is standard for an executive physical at President Trump's age and confirms that he remains in excellent overall health. So just giving you that key update from Trumpy. Is there much point? I'll maybe do 10 more minutes of this, but I do have to leave probably around then. But that was I mean 0 out of 10 for both of them so far. Good Logic and Branca. I mean, and Branca's worse actually. As hard as that is to say, I mean, it's just horrible.
Perimeter of what he's legally allowed to do, but then on the other end, by the way, those politicians were allowed to make that video, right?
Well, hold on.
I think that.
Oh no, I think they're probably not allowed to make that.
I think they probably broke the law, actually.
Oh shit!
You're unfucking believable. You're a disgusting, like a subhuman. I can't believe that you guys.
Yo.
Okay, why? How? Hold on, just real quick, Destiny, please. Why did they break the law? Give us that argument, please.
When they're under 18 U.S.C. 2387. That they're trying to demoralize and discourage the military from actually fighting.
Yeah, what about this thing called the fucking First Amendment? And what about this thing about encouraging lawful, like you don't have an obligation to follow legal orders. So it's not insubordination or encouraging disloyalty to encourage people to do what's lawfully allowed and to not do what's lawfully not allowed. But also the First Amendment, bro. You gonna factor that in?
Following the commanding officers. That's what they're trying to do. That's what their objective is. You know it also. You can pretend that you don't know that that's what their objective is. Their objective is that every time an order comes down, which the left may question, that they have to sit there and think to themselves, is this something that I can get in trouble for down the road? That's what their objective is. Why else are they making the video?
Because they're worried that the people...
You have no answer to that, because that's the only possible motivation.
Hold on, no. The possibility is they don't want... Could it be... This might be a stretch, okay. Maybe they just don't want them to follow unlawful orders?
Right. Okay. But then you wouldn't put it under the context of literally days after Alyssa Slotkin goes out there, says that Trump is issuing illegal orders.
What are you saying?
Wasn't Trump issuing illegal orders? Didn't that happen?
No, he wasn't.
Do you think
so? The murdering of the people.
He did something illegal.
See, now you want to go into the whole murdering that happened after the video was made. Right, and you want to
how about we can talk about stealing the National Guard from the governors when Trump is using the National Guard or redeploying them to state?
Okay, all right. I do have to go, folks. Which sucks because this was a very spirited. I think we got like most of the. Well, I assume the heated stuff, right? Maybe there's more. We'll talk about if there's more time to like review more stuff. But closing statement, please.
Like the National Guard can't go.
I have no doubt.
You are such a fucking coward, dude.
Wait, what?
In the literal mental gymnastics Olympics.
One thing that is simple is he cannot send the National Guard into the Capitol because the Capitol Police are under the jurisdiction of the Speaker of the House. I don't care what.
What? Wait, what the fuck?
That's obviously something subjective because one judge.
Oh, then it shouldn't be a problem,
no,
right?
Another judge says yes. No, that's exactly the problem. That's why it's so dangerous, because you have one judge saying it's unconstitutional, another one saying it's not. This guy's sitting in the freaking cockpit deciding, do I press this button or not? And Alyssa Slotkin says, I better not do it, otherwise I'm going to get prosecuted. That is really manifestly dangerous. That is weakening our military. That is what you're advocating for, and you're trying to whitewash it.
Then why do we have this law? Then why do we have this law at all? Then why do we have this law at all? Why do we have this law at all? Excuse me, fuck you. What's sick and disgusting is the fact that the President of the United States is deploying the military that he knows that he can't do. You keep saying he's following the law. Well, then why was he complaining about not being able to do it with Minnesota when all of BLM was going? And he knows he's fucking breaking the law. The disgusting thing is using your own.
What I want to hear about is the. I assume he's making a point about Jan 6.
Own fucking military. What do you mean? What part do I need to refresh on? What other thing do you not know about? Tell me. I can educate you. Since apparently you don't fucking anything. It was not on fucking Twitter for you.
Also, you're in Minnesota now. I know
because Donald Trump had issues during the BLM riots. He was complaining that the governors wouldn't authorize him to deploy the National Guard to their states because he knew he didn't have the authority to do it. That was his main argument during J6 was that he couldn't deploy the National Guard to the Capitol because Nancy Pelosi or whatever fucking person at the time he wanted to blame for his incompetence.
The law.
Oh, you're not going to possibly say that he couldn't do that.
Oh, so what changed then? What law changed? What law changed between now and January 6th and 2021 that allows him now to deploy the National Guard? So why didn't he just deploy the National Guard immediately then, if he could always do it?
He's not going to say that Trump legally couldn't do it, right?
Another pivot. He's thinking of the pivot up right now. He's thinking it. He knows he fucked up.
No, I didn't understand your question even.
You don't understand the question? Trump is claiming ultimate, complete, super mega authority with the National Guard, but he didn't do it on January 6th. Why not?
He couldn't deploy the National Guard because Bowser said something or whatever,
Right.
the mayors, whatever. He said he couldn't do it. Why can he do it now? What changed between now and then?
Location.
But they're deploying in DC. Oh, he's not going to say, there's no way.
I'm sorry. I might be a fucking... Is the Capitol?
You obviously are a retard.
Whoa!
A big difference between District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. as a city proper and the Capitol itself.
Is there a difference? Yeah, they are different concepts. They refer to different things. Why does the Capitol, which contains... the DC, which contains the Capitol, why do they limit Trump's authority with the National Guard?
Those are two different things. Those are two completely different things. So when you're sitting there saying like, "Oh, it's why is he not here?" The answer obviously is location.
Is the Capitol in Washington D.C.?
Yeah, but
he can't send the National Guard in there.
The authority there, the final authority there, actually goes to the Speaker of the House.
Name a fucking law. Name a fucking under good logic, right? This is good logic's vision, right? This is good logic's vision. The Russians during the Cold War have paratroopers that go embed themselves into Congress, and they take over Pelosi and all of Congress at gunpoint. And Congress has not given the go-ahead for the DC to enter there, and Trump can't mobilize the National Guard to go in there to save the Congress people. I'm sorry. What is the citation that he is going to provide that could possibly make this? This must be something he just invented. I cannot believe that he would be this stupid and naive.
Which is why ultimately was Nancy Pelosi. You need approval.
No, you don't. No, you fucking don't. Not if you have a lawful purpose. Obviously, if you're going to use the National Guard to like obstruct, like that would be, it's self-standingly illegal. But to put down an insurrection, hell fucking yeah, you could. You think that fucking Lincoln couldn't? I mean, Lincoln did. Lincoln surrounded DC. And if the Confederates had gotten into the Capitol, he would have been well within his rights to send his troops to go clear them out of there. What the fuck is this? Obviously, you can't deploy the National Guard into the Capitol for like some horrible counter-constitutional purpose. There's no way he believes.
Oh my God, you're so wrong. You're just a fucking liar. How are you so insane on this?
I think it either is a lie or he just made it up. And that is so
You're telling
insane.
me that the ultimate police force of the Congress...
And he takes off his glasses like he's lecturing...
of the U.S. federal Congress is not the U.S. federal National Guard or police. They can't. It's not them. It rests with the Speaker of the fucking House. A political position here.
Yes. And also, where did these guys get shot? You know,
wasn't it outside?
These National Guard.
Wasn't it right outside there? Where was it though?
No. Wait.
I think it was I-17th. I think it was I-17th in D.C.
Was it at the Capitol?
They weren't at the Capitol.
I thought weren't they right outside the White House?
But they're not in the Capitol.
Oh, it's only in the Capitol. But like, what are you citing that makes this distinction? They'll do anything. They'll be like, it's on Wednesday, and obviously you can't mobilize on Wednesday. This was on Thursday, so it was on Wednesday. So I mean, that's checkmate, atheist. I really.
So you think you can deploy the National Guard?
Why are we actually having this conversation? I don't understand.
Because you don't believe this. Because you know the point is that he knew in the past it was illegal. He complained during BLM that the governors wouldn't acquiesce to him.
I don't think it would have been illegal in the Jan 6. I think he just ran into that one. I think it would have been legal for him to deploy in certain contexts. I don't think about that.
Using the National Guard. Now he's doing it without the governors even consenting. Statements? So what changed?
There's three different contexts. You just use National Guard as if this is like as if using National Guard here for this reason or that reason are the same. I'm not obfuscating.
I understand there are reasons why. You could do it in times of rebellion or coups. You could do it in times of enemy invasion. You could do it in times of great national crises. And the BLM, yes, and I already said that. In the BLM era, which would have been way more of an insurrection than whatever the fuck he thinks is going on now. In the BLM era, he complained. I don't know if he called.
Wait, he did. He did. He called them insurrectionists. Why do these people lie when I have the insurrection files on my Twitter and where I document everyone who used insurrection or insurrectionists to refer to BLM people, and it includes Trump?
This time either. In the BLM era,
he specifically did. He called
He
this an
declared-
insurrection. He basically declared there to be an uprising.
Stop.
That
What
was
do you
the
mean?
statute he
I'm
relied
sorry.
on.
Explain to me legally. What does it mean to basically do something?
He basically did it.
That sounds like code speak for didn't do something.
No,
it reminds me of when Branca was like, in the broader political context, means not sedition.
Declare formally. He declared an insurrection in California.
In his executive order.
No, he didn't. He declared danger of he declared rebellion, not insurrection.
That's exactly what Judge Breyer was arguing about, whether or not he had the authority to make that declaration in California. That's exactly what they were. That's where
they weren't debating insurrection.
Does he have the authority to do that unilaterally? Does he have to go through Congress to do that? That's exactly what all these issues, the legal issues, which are complicated, which have been going back and forth between whether you're on district court level or you're on the.
Can we just go to the closings? I don't know if I
have
to go.
I do think that Mark Kelly should be.
Oh, this is it.
Donald Trump has.
I don't know. Maybe it's authoritarian.
We've come to the time of it's time for closing statements. Let's say 1.25. I am going to be streaming. If you guys want to go call-ins or whatever, you may. But I want to make sure that the people here get a chance to have closing arguments.
Good debate panel,
thoughts, and I got links to all these people in my YouTube description. They can tell you where they can find you, etc. Yeah, here we are. We're gonna let Logic have the last word, so we're gonna start with Soypill, go Destiny, then Logic, and then Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a whole argument set up here. We never got to it. The National Guard troop should not have been there. There's a reason why judges are saying that he's violating posse comitatus. Why was it Briggs or Cobbs is saying that this is not a legal deployment. And the whole idea that this is a necessary action, that the crime is so rampant, is ridiculous. I mean, you look at what people are saying. You look at the stats. The crime is at like a 30-year low. This is not some sort of we need to do this because these cities are out of control. He's doing this because he wants to gain power and he wants to have influence in these cities and he wants to have some sort of executive branch that lets him do what the law enforcement is supposed to do. It's clearly a power grab. It's authoritarian action by Trump. And yeah, therefore it is his fault for putting people who shouldn't have been here in places where they didn't need to be, where people in the National Guard and other generals warned him and said, hey, this is going to amp up the rhetoric. This is going to put them in harm's way. This does not need to happen. They all were telling him this before he did it, and he did it anyway, and then something violent happens. No, it's not Trump's fault that a crazy guy got a gun and walked up to someone and shot them, but this never would have happened if he didn't do these orders. They didn't need to be there. It's his fault in the same way that, like, you could say, oh yeah, like, it's not someone's fault for going to a frat party and getting assaulted, sure, but if they said, I don't want to go, and then you said, well, you know what, I'm going to force you to go, and I just dropped a bunch of fucking...
I don't think it's quite like that. Come on. These people didn't think that they were going into, like, they didn't want to go because it was too dangerous or something. It's a reach, I think. The topic as phrased just is stupid.
Viagra and all the punch...
And I think it's indefensible.
Like, yeah, it's a little bit your
except in its most literal interpretation, which is stupid.
Fault. So it's ridiculous. And the fact that you couldn't even admit to the most benign of all things, which was, hey, does Donald Trump at least have some culpability if you were to say, I'm going to kill every Democrat in a state? And you said, probably. That's the closest you can get to admitting anything is probably. And you can't even assign a weight to it. Is it 1%? Is it 90%? I don't know, maybe. But when you look at this fucking video from the Seditious Six, it's like, no, this is clearly a seditious act. They should be prosecuted. In fact, I agree with Trump. They should be hanged. It's so fucking cowardly. But
wait, did he say he should be killed?
You stayed.
I didn't say that.
Griff.
Oh, okay, he didn't say that.
Lion soy. At least you stayed to your little griff. The other guy ran away because he knew he would actually have to answer a question. So thanks for that. This was embarrassing.
Well, gang, if you like Soy Pill,
from
go
what
check
I
them
saw,
out. Destiny, please.
This is a deeply unserious conversation. I look forward to the next election whenever the Democrats are back in power and all of a sudden conservatives rediscover their love for freedom of speech and limitation on executive powers. There's a reason why Bill Barr was considered one of the most right-wing attorney generals of all time, why he resigned under Donald Trump with days left in the administration. There's a reason why Donald Trump didn't run with the same vice presidents, because he wanted the last one to get fucking killed when he was calling people to the Capitol to not change the outcome of the election, but apparently, according to good logic, just call for some investigation into some voter fraud that they'd already done and nothing had been found that would change the outcome of the election. Donald Trump has pardoned every single person around him, including people that had no business even getting pardoned, people that were committing seditious conspiracy on his behalf, people that were obstructing investigations on his behalf, like Roger Stone, and then he's targeted political opponents in ways that no prior administration ever has. At least Good Logic's friend was good faith enough to admit that. I think he realized that just showing up with a little fucking lawyer tag and not knowing any fucking law whatsoever wasn't going to be enough to get his retarded ass through this debate, which, props to that guy for at least being smart enough to realize he needed to walk the fuck out of the Thunderdome because he was not ready for the Kaya shocks that were coming here, okay? And I hope that, when the next Democratic president steps in and he starts flexing that criminal immunity, when he starts realizing that the executive branch can target and kill and do whatever the fuck they want, as long as they listen to a court eventually, I hope the Republicans are as excited to defend that as they have been to defend Donald Trump.
Okay, if you guys like what Destiny has to say, you can find a link to him if for whatever reason you don't already have it. It's in my YouTube description. Finally, last word from Good Logic, please. Go ahead.
I didn't come here prepared to flex a fourth grade vocabulary. So I apologize those who were looking for me to jump down into that ring. At the end of the day, the most significant thing that came out of this is a recognition from both of my adversaries over here that what the seditious six did in that video.
Are you seriously calling them that? White House confirms second deadly strike on alleged boat was deliberate. White House said Monday that Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley, commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command, was responsible for ordering a second targeted strike on an alleged drug vessel operating in the Caribbean on September 2nd after the first strike did not kill everyone on board. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defended Bradley, who she said was well within his authority to order the second strike, which CNN has reported killed the remaining crew on board. The strike has generated questions on both sides. Blah, 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 blah. On September 2nd, Hegseth authorized Bradley to conduct these strikes. Bradley worked well within his authority to ensure the boat was destroyed and threat was eliminated. So, I mean, they're just admitting it. People should go to jail for murder.
They made members of the military potentially question their activities when they're in the midst of a heated moment.
How insane is it that he's defending this kind of shit? Well, insane, it's not like unexpected. I just mean like, how insane is it that we have to stomach this?
For actions that actually may ultimately prevail as being totally constitutional and thereby made for a more dangerous situation. I do not think they should be hanged for that. I think that Trump is speaking passionately when he says that.
Oh
he says that, it's treason.
He's speaking passionately?
They should be hanged. I don't think that that's the appropriate punishment for them. I do think...
Can you imagine if Biden was like, Trump should be hanged for what he did? We would never, ever, 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 ever stop hearing that.
That Mark Kelly should be court-martialed and stripped of his commission, and I think that he should be forced out in disgrace. And I think that to the extent that there was a conspiracy here to try and harm our military, I think that weakens life for all Americans. We take our military for granted, and when you have our own congressmen and women sitting there trying to undermine them and have them questioning their own actions when they're taking it, that creates a very dangerous situation. With respect to the question of the main topic at hand, I think that Trump did everything he could legally to get him out. He's not a fascist, which is why he didn't simply remove all the Afghanis, and that's why this gentleman.
The Afghanis. I just, you are going to apply collective guilt to Biden on immigration stuff. You said that the blood of Laken Riley was on Biden's hands. You said that basically that Biden assumed responsibility for anything any immigrant does bad in this country. And now when the standard is going to get applied to Trump, you're like, oh, he was trying to be humanitarian. He's not a total fascist. This is disgusting.
Was here to commit those heinous acts. And frankly, I said it would be much easier. I don't want him to be more of a fascist, but life would be much easier for him if he was the fascist that you're always claiming him to be. And I think it's a good thing that he's not that fascist, but he's dealing with a mess that has been baked in here purposefully by the Democrats under Biden. That they brought in all these Afghanis, they brought in millions of illegal aliens, and every step he's been taking to try and make our country safer and safer, they literally will stand in front of federal vehicles and try and go and run to one courthouse after another trying to stop him from taking steps. And the only reaction that the left have is, oh my God, we might lose some criminal illegal alien be forced to be sent back home, which is horrific and shocking that people actually still take that position. But I guess if it works for you, go with it. I appreciate that at some point here we had moments of actual conversation, and hopefully in the future, if we actually debate each other, we can dial back the juvenile, you're stupid, idiot, foul language, and actually just engage in discourse. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, an alternative perspective, actually check me out. It's Good Logic. Find me on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, under that name, Good Logic.
Check him out. I got a link to his channel. You guys are free to stay if you
Hell
like. We got
yeah.
some callers,
Good
but if
shit.
you need to go, I understand. You're I'm not Hamas. I'm not going to hold you hostage, right? So
I said I'd give you 2 hours. Which
Okay, all right. Thank you guys. Hey, appreciate all of you watching everything. What?
we were kind of hitting up against.
Prepare,
Wait, can I ask a quick single answer question?
Go for it,
Logic?
Justin.
When it comes to enforcing executive stuff in the executive branch, so things like vetting people that come over, who does the buck stop with?
President.
Okay. And yeah, thank you again for coming. I do appreciate you. Unfortunately, I don't think Branca knew what he was getting into, right? Maybe he should have watched a little.
To be clear, that guy's Twitter feed is fucking unhinged. The guy thought that he could show up and throw around a few legal terms. The guy doesn't fucking know anything about anything, especially international law. And the idea that going to law school in the United States would privy you to some understanding of international law is a fucking joke. The reason why that guy did the fuck out is he's a pussy-ass bitch, and he knew that he was going to get fucking roasted here. This is probably the first challenging conversation this fucking retard's ever had his entire fucking life.
Okay.
He would destroy.
To be clear,
and properly moderate.
He would. Where was his
properly
proper
moderated.
moderation? Where somebody's here to handhold him through the entire fucking conversation because he can't make a point?
What I'm saying is, when he's arguing with people who are adult, and I've seen him argue with people who are adult enough to not say you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're a child, F you. So
you said that
in that environment, he's actually a pitbull. He just doesn't. It's not worth his time and effort.
When he's around weaker people, that's what you just said. Other people that are too mean to tell them out. Unbelievable. You guys are the debate profession, litigators, right?
It's sad that you think that makes you stronger. It's very sad.
Oh, like the president of the United States conducts himself constantly?
Because
Look, if
it was just a little bit trolling. I was memeing. I was trolling. It was meme. It was trolls.
That's on me, not on.
It was trolling. It was trolling.
And also, Wick, his pinned tweet is
I'm not upset with
remigrate
you.
everyone right now. So, like, I don't think that he's exactly some person who's allergic to blood sports. He clearly knows the game. He's just bad at it.
But it's not being bad at it, saying I'm not going to be talked down to me. There's a difference between arguing points versus arguing ad hominem, and that's all. And he's not going to do that.
It's cuck
Yeah.
shit.
So when I call someone out for not answering a question, that's talking down to them.
No, when you're basically saying that F you're an effing retard dick sucker. That's
not. I said that to you. I didn't say that to him right away. In fact, he left when I said you're not answering the question, so it didn't require that level of ad hominem to get him out.
You didn't let him finish his answer. There's a certain level of respect. What I'm saying is,
what do you think about the level? Wait, one more quick question.
I did mute Soy Pill so he could finish his answer, but then he left anyway.
okay.
What do you think about the level of respect Donald Trump showed the reporter that he called stupid because she asked him a difficult question?
It wasn't a difficult question.
It is within his purview to say
that. I can't believe.
Oh my god.
Either way.
What?
Yeah. Okay. I do got super chats too. So if you need,
Quiet,
to go
Peggy.
Thank you. Right.
Take care.
Wow.
I thank you.
That's pretty fucked. All right, I'm raiding into Rob Noir because I don't see anyone else. So yeah, go have fun with Rob. Have fun with Rob. I think we're on for tonight. I might have an engagement with this organization that I'm a part of, but yeah, have fun, guys.